Well, hello everyone. Hello, hello. Hope everyone's having a good day. Hi, Annabelle. Thanks, guys, for popping in for little old me. Oh, you're in Boston. I actually just came back from Boston to see my brother. Oh, thank you. From LA. I'm also in LA. Well, technically Glendale, but we consider all those cities like pretty much LA anyway. Hey, everyone. The witch won the poll. So the more difficult one won the poll. Oh, really? Let me see. Let me try something else. So my audio says it's on. Oh, you can hear me now. Okay, good, good, good. Please let me know if there's any video issues or audio issues. I'll see what I can do. From what I checked so far, my video seems to be working. If you're looking at the screen, it should be my Photoshop image with the panel info that I had posted. So let me know if there are, if there are any hiccups along the way. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Sounds good. Wow, so many people from all around. This is what I like about Lightbox, having this online option and these online talks. Like, it's a lot more accessible to people around the world. So I do really like that. From Detroit, hello. Maryland, wow, geez. Saw someone from Netherlands, Mexico, from Spain, Miami, dang, Sweden, Israel, India. This is amazing, guys. Welcome. Oh, I don't know if you heard him. Here's my cat. Hello, Haru. Yes, people are here. Haru? No? Come here. And you? I'm here. You need to say hello. Hello, everybody. He's very shy. He's a very good boy. Hello. You were so noisy earlier. Oh, you're in France, Megan. I don't know. It's the boy. It's the good boy. Yeah, he's very big. If I hold him up like this, see how big and chunky he is. I know that was not nice. Oh, you're an island, Andrea. Nice. Cool, cool. Leon, hi! I know, my chunky long cat. He's so fat. All right, you're gonna go there. Sit here. I'll put this away so you're not scared off by the cone. Anda. Anda. No, just gonna chill here. Oh, yeah, our cats are pretty patient with us, pretty much. Yes. Would you like to do a talk? Would you like to do a talk? But you're too shy. You only do a talking for Namoni. When someone else is around, you go quiet. We'll see if Celine's cat ever ends up like sauntering in eventually. The big floofy one. You guys might have seen her cat, Taro. Yeah. He tries in the sense that every time I am drawing, he likes to rub his face all over my Cintiq pen. So the drawings and the lines go AWOL all over the place. So I guess that's his way of contributing. Here you go. Here he is again. So he'll be an occasional distraction during this demo and talk. Yeah, for the people that are just coming in. Here's my cat. His name is Haru. Never anything wrong with animals. Oh, you insist on going across. Okay. Link it down. Sorry, give me a second, guys. It's very needy. There's a desk right next to me and the sun comes in right on that spot. He usually likes to lie down there, but he refuses to lie down unless if I lay down his blanket on the table and then he'll plop down and relax. Oh, hello, kitty. Let me see something. Come back. Looks like the call caps at 100. Just give me a moment. Oi, don't do that. I don't know. You keep doing that, I'm gonna have to kick you out. What happened? Oh no, not you. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to scare anyone. No, my cat was trying to chew on a plant and I'm like, that's why you don't do that normally. Why are you doing that now? That is my bad. You should have given a forewarning. All right, just give me a moment. Seems like that the people count is capped at 100. If I'm gonna try and see if I could extend it for other people so they can come in. It's the mom voice. Hmm. Sorry about this, guys. We'll start in just a moment. By the way, so how we're planning on doing this is during the talk for the next few hours. I'm probably going to be extending the hours like a little bit more since we're running into a few issues. So what I would like to do, because I'm going to lose track of the chat, is if you guys are able to unmute yourself, just unmute and then ask your question, or if you have anything to say, then do so. We'll probably go. That's how we're planning on rolling in this. Because yeah, sometimes I might not be able to check the chat, especially when I'm doing the demo and drawings and stuff. If that sounds good for you, let me know. And whoever that wants to go first with the question, we can start while I'm working on this.
So is this gonna be for a few hours or?
It'll be for a few hours. I originally slotted it for at least 3 hours. I might extend it to 4, seeing how things are going, and I'm trying to make adjustments during our time right now. So yeah, it'll be going on for most likely 3 hours. Yeah, so during that time, just chill out, ask away anything that you need. And I'm going to also be posting a video online as well for people that have missed out on this. And then people can go back to it, take notes of anything, or people that couldn't come in, if I can't extend the participant number, then they can check out the video later.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't know if I can stay the whole time though, because it's 11 p.m. for me.
Oh,
But
okay. Yeah, no worries.
but
Well,
yeah,
if you want to go first with anything, do let me know. But yeah, I'm going to post a video again later, and I'll let everyone know probably on Instagram and stuff once I posted it.
sure. Actually, I have to kind of think and gather my thoughts, but
No
yeah,
worries. Take your time.
yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I'll post it on YouTube. I'm seeing here in the chat. Yes. So I'll be posting it on YouTube. Looks like I cannot extend the participant count unless if I delete this entire meeting and then create a brand new one, and I don't think it's worth it to do that. So we're going to go straight in, if that's okay with you guys. If you know any friends that are trying to get in but then they can't seem to get in, this is why. One more thing. But yeah, go ahead, shoot your questions away, ask me anything. Yeah, okay. I know, the joys of Zoom. I still don't know how to work any of this. I'm not the one that usually sets these things up. Okay, well, I know for next time I'll have to set up a webinar instead of a Zoom call. So. Don't worry. Take your time. We have a few hours, so if you think of questions later on down the line, then let me know later. Just go ahead, unmute yourself, and then if for people that didn't catch it, just click unmute if you want to ask a question, because I can't keep track of the chat if there are questions coming in, because it might zoom past it. Plus, I have like 10,000 windows open right now to keep track of everything. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Anna came in. Anna popped in first. If that's okay, Cricket. I'll follow up with your question right after. But yeah. The other reason why, if you guys can, turn on your mics, if it's possible for you guys, is so everyone else can also hear the question, in case they miss it in the chat as well. But for Anna, she asked, where did I get my bookcases from? So both of these are from IKEA, actually. I need real big ass bookcases because I have way too many books on me. I have another one that's actually under the desk, which is holding up my tabletops right now. And that one I actually asked my dad to make because I needed a very specific, like bookshelf to store my books, because either the spaces in a lot of the bookshelves that I was getting were either too narrow this way. So and as you guys know, art books are pretty dang big, so it couldn't fit. So I asked him to build me a very specific one for that. And then you also asked my favorite books in my bookcase. That is hard. Let's see. I don't know. I don't particularly have specific favorites because I use them all for such different purposes. There's this one book that I am looking at, this one graphic novel. So I'm working on a graphic novel right now. So I needed all the reference and help that I can get. But I've been looking at this one a lot. If you guys can see it. The work in this is so freaking good. I believe his full name is Felix Delef. But yeah, he just created a Instagram recently, so you can probably see his work in there. But let me look for a good page. They're all really good actually, so shouldn't even be picking and choosing, but dang, really good ones. Okay. So there are spreads like this. Beautiful work. Here, in case you guys missed the name. But yeah, this book is amazing. And also, I've also been looking at, could be butchering people's names, so do excuse me. Enrique Fernandez. He's looking at his Tale of the Age of the Cobra. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. And just all his compositions and colors and his use of like shape and design are just so solid. But yes, this book is amazing. I actually picked this up on Amazon if you guys need like quick access to picking up books. I don't know if his store is still open, but I highly recommend his book as well. I'm gonna take a look at it. I just have a stack of comics right here. There's this one as well called Nils. I don't know if you guys have heard of this one. I have a lot of graphic novels on me. And he has like insane, like epic looking spreads like this. I know, I have, I need to see the cover again for the title and the names. I'll also be posting the video again later. So if you guys want to look back into it, if you need to refer to the titles in the video later on, please go ahead. Okay, so let's see. For Cricket, they asked, what are some things you do to keep your mental health while you work? It depends on the work sometimes, but let's see. Actually, how about I get started on doodling? So I don't burn my eyes while trying to work on this. There's cat hair all over the screen already. Okay. So at least for me, Cricket, are you referring to, or what aspect of work are you referring to? Are you talking about in terms of like the workplace, like in the industry, doing personal work or schoolwork, things like that? Personal work. Okay. Got it. Got it. I actually have that too. And for those who have been following for a while, you guys might have noticed that I haven't been posting a lot. That is because I'm also dealing with a lot of anxieties working on personal work, but that mainly came from external sources. Um, there's there's an aspect to work these days, whether it's from online or your peers or just being around like fellow students or fellow coworkers, that there's this weird internal pressure that you have to be busy, that you have to be constantly working. And it took me a while. Originally, I had tried to brute force it, thinking if I just force myself to keep working, then eventually my physical ableness to just engage with the work that I want to do and personal work, it'll catch up. What ended up happening as a result instead was that it actually got worse. It got so much more substantially worse of trying to force myself to do it, because what I realized that I was doing was that I was actually working not for myself, I was working for someone else, if that makes any sense. Whether if they had engaged for me to ask me to do work or challenge me in some way, whether maybe they may not have intended, um, or maybe it's in a way like I was doing work out of spite because I felt a little bit hurt maybe by what someone had said, or I felt unnecessarily challenged. That ends up becoming your engagement to the work that you want to create in the end, is instigated by someone else. And because of things like that, you end up losing a lot of, I guess in some way, you end up losing a lot of sense of purpose as to why you're doing your work. It becomes not fun. It becomes, it's very draining, basically, because originally the reason why we do personal work is because we want to challenge ourselves. We want to learn for ourselves to help ourselves gain a lot of capability to work, create more work, basically. And so what I had to do as a result, and especially if you're maybe in a state where basically because I was trying to brute force my way into making myself work, forcing myself to work, was that I'm like trying to multitask at the same time, if you don't mind me if I go quiet for a second. But basically, because I have brute forced myself to basically try and make myself become something by the standards that technically weren't originally mine, I ended up burning out very, very fast. It was hard. It was hard. And for me, as a result of that, it actually took me, because I'm a very extremely stubborn person. If someone tries to challenge me, it's less so now because I've been trying to work over the years to like fix it basically. But what ended up happening was that yeah, it took me years because what ended up coming out of it was that all of my work, because it was an association or triggered by someone else, ended up becoming the source of anxiety. Doing the work itself kind of started to suck. And then that ended up trickling into all the other aspects of work as well. I started getting anxiety just from going into work and then getting assignments because I started second guessing myself as a result. Because it's like, what if they don't like this? What if I'm not enough? What if my performance isn't enough? What if I'm not fast enough? What if I'm not producing enough? And that, so much of that, for me at least, was built because of outside sources. So what I needed to do was, number one, take a break. It took me years to take a break. As in, I had to force myself and get used to the idea of not producing work. Because sometimes not producing work is actually, surprisingly enough, it's very hard to do. Because you feel like you should be on the clock constantly to be doing work all the time. So when you're in those types of situations where you feel anxiety when you're doing work, take the moment to take a break. If you need to do class assignments or like other work assignments, like that's fine. But in terms of like personal work, for me, because you still, I mean, it's the same with me. I still need to do industry work. I still need to do like assignments and things like that. But yeah, it was only after, I think, like as ridiculous as it sounds, maybe about 3-4 years that I start to officially like feel comfortable just being still, basically. And then through that, I started to re-engage with like basically my own thoughts of like how I want to do things. Um, um, so yeah, if you're, I hope that I hope that answers your question, Cricket. But yeah, basically, take a break. Take a break, step away, look at something else. If looking at the work that you're doing, or just being, honestly, like sometimes like just being on social media was freaking me out, because seeing the constant influx of work coming in gave me so much anxiety at a certain point that I just had to stay offline. So things like that, just, and there's nothing wrong with taking as long as you need. And because there's no, benefit to trying to constantly compare your progress to others, because you are not that person, nor are they you. Everyone's situations are so vastly different, meaning that everyone's recovery rates even are also different. Everyone's timing and way of processing information is also vastly different. So yeah, it's a long-winded way of answering that. It's a very raw thing for me as well. It's been taking me time to get over it, but I do gotta say, just having that break and just like disengaging from it was definitely the biggest benefit that I had gotten. Let me see. Brianna asked, when you're in an art slump, how do you get yourself through it, and where do you find inspiration? It's pretty much kind of similar to what I had mentioned before. Take a break. Take a break for as long as you need if you're really having a tough time, because sometimes just staring at just work itself, basically your head is in like constant overdrive at that point, which means you're not producing enough. Basically your thoughts are just so jumbled in together that it's not creating consistent consistent cohesive thoughts, because right now you're basically hearing like a bunch of thoughts all at once, and then it's everything is just overlapping, nothing makes sense. So first thing is at least take a break, step away from what you're doing, because sometimes, oddly enough, once you calm down and if you take a look at it later, it looks a lot better than you think sometimes, or you realize that, oh, actually just one part of the illustration looks a lot better than I had thought. That, and sometimes actually for me, looking at physical books has actually helped me a lot for some reason. It could be because I'm looking at just one person's body of work, versus if I'm looking at things online on social media, I'm seeing hundreds of people's work that are constantly being uploaded every single day. So it's hard to retain information that way, or what you need to be taking from it. So sometimes it actually helps me out, like with the books that I had shown you earlier, just taking a look at these. I almost just smashed my face in this one. That actually helps a lot, at least for me. And then just during your chill time, just watch a movie, um, like read a book, just take a look at some graphic novels that you had enjoyed before, and then just have some time to enjoy yourself. Because if you're sitting down to try and force yourself to make something, then it's hard to be inspired, because usually inspiration comes from something that you have genuinely enjoyed, or something that's basically, yeah, you had enjoyed looking at it, you enjoyed the experience of retaining that information. So if you're stressing yourself out by trying to force yourself to create something, then it's going to be hard to figure out what you would like to draw. And at the same time, don't pressure yourself. Don't pressure yourself to like have to create something original either. There's, in my personal opinion, there's nothing original anymore. Personally, what is more important is like, how do you utilize the information that comes in? How do you utilize all the things that you have learned? And in your own way, how did you make that idea work for yourself, just for fun? And also, like, just in the end, especially if it's like personal work, did you enjoy it? What did you get out of it? And it could be even just like, originally maybe you might have just wanted to draw like a very specific thing, I don't know, like what am I looking at right now? Like, I don't know, soldiers on horseback or something like that. Like you might have learned something out of it, or and like some maybe at a certain point, like maybe you'd be surprised your line work is actually pretty cool. So just don't pressure yourself to get it done, because it's those little things that end up taking the fun away from it. Hope that I hope that answers your question. Amabel says, have I read Summer by Ryul? I haven't. I screenshotting that. I'll take a look at that later. And yes, I do know Zhao Dao. I have a whole box of Zhao Dao books down there. So there was another question from Ray. When I'm designing new things, I really get stuck with ideas and it always ends up looking generic. Curious if you have any advice on how to come up with fresh designs. It's kind of hard to answer because I don't think my designs are fresh. I'm just copying off of, oh, this person has a cool vibe. I want to try to create that vibe. Let me see. I think that might kind of tie in with it a bit. In terms of, I usually try to look for something that I genuinely do enjoy. Like if there is a certain, I guess as you would say, certain aesthetics that you would enjoy. There's a lot of people that really like witchy aesthetics. There's a lot of people that have like certain tones and vibes that they really enjoy. Just I would say don't try and force yourself to create fresh designs, create a unique style, because style isn't something, in my personal opinion, that really is something that you can just create on the fly. Because the reason why style ends up being made, in a sense, is because that person has like very specific likes and dislikes meant for themselves, and through that they end up applying the different aspects of like what they liked from this person, or their personal taste of like, oh, I really like this type of tone, I like this type of look, I like very magical things, I like maybe mobster looking things, and just go in through that small step and trying to draw from that. And then from there, as you're drawing from it, just like first, still same thing, like enjoy it, don't stress yourself out. If it's stressing you out, take a break, step away from it. Sorry, it's like really hard to talk and draw at the same time. But what was I saying? Basically that, so once you have maybe made your piece, and just take a look and be like, oh, like first of all, don't worry too much of like all the things that you did not like about it, because everyone's still figuring shit out. Even after you might have, let's say maybe you did end up you end up learning and you've ended up advancing a lot further than you might have anticipated from like maybe a piece. That's great. But we're human, which means what we end up doing as a result is like, I like this thing, but I want more. Because our skill set is here, our expectations are here. As our skill set grows, our expectations also start growing from there. So what you should end up doing with each of your pieces, it's like, oh, like I really enjoyed what I did from this. This was a little cool thing that I had done and that really worked. If there are certain design aspects in your piece that you're working on that on the way that it's not quite working, I honestly still go back to looking at other illustrations that might have a similar mood. I look at a lot of photography and a lot of fashion models, actually, for a lot of shape designs that are a little bit more unique. Because if I look at illustrations and it's a little bit it's kind of specific to how that person wanted to create something for themselves. So I do look at those sometimes if I want to look at some technical aspects of like, oh, they use this sort of method to like create this, this type of shape and that worked because of X, Y, and Z. But because photography and things like that actually have more unexpectancies, I would say, I do tend to like looking at those a lot, and through that you end up drawing inspiration from those shapes, and you end up creating those shapes yourself because you're creating it into an illustration, which means we are either simplifying it or designing the shape specifically to how it suits our needs in that moment. A lot of it is just also, there's also another aspect of it where like just constant practice can also help build your skill set, and building that skill set also lends itself to giving yourself more capabilities and more, basically you end up being able to create more as a result of that. So sometimes there are certain cases where like right now I do challenge, like if I do challenge myself with certain illustrations, I really had to challenge myself sometimes, but then it also means I have to take a lot of breaks in between because it is pretty overwhelming, like creating viz dev level, like key scene pieces and things like that, because it's a lot to think about, versus like character sketches and things like that. I don't have to worry about, I just have to just keep noodling, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a lot, but I would say that don't, because there's something that someone had mentioned to me that like style, if you're referring to style is not really quite just it's not really an identity, to put it simply. Basically it can be, but everyone else has sourced that information to create that specific style, based off of whatever information that they were retaining themselves. So even for those people, it's not really quite original either. Organize my reference photos. Sorry, just blanking out. Basically the best way to think about style especially is that style is a method of problem solving. This person had problem solved to what they wanted to achieve in a specific drawing or illustration through their own means based off other information that they have looked and basically retained. So what you're looking at when you're looking at some people's work, because in the end design is problem solving, they problem solved it a certain way. And what you're learning by trying to look at people's styles, looking at people's work, you're looking at how someone had problem solved that illustration to make it work to how they wanted to, basically whatever that they wanted to achieve. That actually helped me a lot. So it gives a lot of like less pressure as to like what I should create. Yeah, hopefully that helps. Yeah, we guys, we have so much going on all the time. It's always good to take a break. And sometimes I just kind of sit there and just not think for a while. There are a couple times where Celine has like tried to ask me questions, and I've honestly just been staring at the wall with like nothing going on in my head, and I just look at her like, what? And she's like, that's fine. Like, because usually like for us to do that, it means that we're trying to cool off. Yeah, pretty much. It's necessary because it's kind of like for those of you that have gone to art center, we have almost hardly any breaks in between the terms. By the way, which likely it will happen, if I can't finish any of this, I will put up a video recording of like me finishing this up, basically for you guys to check out later as well. Because trying to talk and draw at the same time is not efficient. I can kind of understand if you guys watch a lot of video gameplays. I understand why a lot of them struggle to try and talk and play a game at the same time. Because as I mentioned, or like earlier, this is problem solving, and I can't problem solve while multitasking. Let's see. Are there any other questions? Technical books about storytelling. I actually have not read many books on storytelling. Are you referring to technical books for like illustrations, or are you talking about more like just storytelling in general, like for scripts and for movies and just general like story structure and things like that? Because if that is the case, I have a book. If you guys are interested in screenwriting, which you guys might have heard of, and I know there are other books as well that are also recommended, but for at least like basic pitch-driven stuff, and for film probably, there's this book called Save the Cat, which I have been chipping away at. This is really good. It teaches you a lot of the basics of how to pitch stories and screenwriting and things like that, and just basic film structure and what elements are there to help motivate character action and things like that. So I do recommend this called Save the Cat. I believe he just came out with another book. There are other books on storytelling as well. I don't remember them. But chances are if you look up Save the Cat and then you see other books along with this that are under recommended, they're probably along the same line. And I know there's a book that's practically a Bible compared to this one. I forget what it's called. But it's usually in these books I try to pick and choose like what I feel like I can use. But yeah, and if you're looking more for screenwriting senses, and that's a good book to take a look at. Oh, someone mentioned Jen Ravenna's photography. Yes, I save so much of her photography. It's so good. Okay, SG asks, what was going through college like for you? What do you think about Art Center now? Is it enough to go there or do you have to do more? Art schools in general, I have a little bit of a thought of. There are pros and cons to it, of course. The cons, of course, are going to be the tuition. Very expensive. So ridiculously expensive. I think the last I checked, if you continue to take summer term, which a lot of students do tend to too, which is Art Center has 3 terms basically in 1 year. The spring, summer, and fall, winter, basically. And from what I have checked recently, Art Center is probably about 60K per year, which is a ridiculous amount. There are scholarships and things like that that you can also apply for scholarships while you're in the school as well. By the way, my method of drawing usually comes from chicken scratching all over the place until I find something that is pretty concise towards what I may want, which is actually, if I take a look at, so there was this one that I had done. This might be a good way to explain this. So I did layers of this. For base drawing, it was actually more like this. And even from there, I had that. I went from chicken scratch to another chicken scratch, and I just kept on going. And then I tried to draw something a little bit more refined. I just kept going from there. So I usually end up with like 4 to 5 layers of rough drawings before I find something that I actually do tend to like. Yeah. And to that in mind, in my personal opinion, there's no specific way of like how you should be doing your rough drawings, your way of like process and things like that, just because of someone else does it a certain way. There's not everyone can nail a drawing in the first go as a rough, and then they can do like another cleaner pass on top. That's from person to person. And sometimes like what I have noticed as well, like a lot of people that basically a lot of their focus is in animation are actually very good at that, but that is also because they had a very specific way of training themselves to draw that way, versus designers. I know for designers in general, they tend to noodle a lot. They do a lot of scratch work on their drawings, and they carve away at the drawings until they get the shape that they want. So that's what I have noticed in terms of like a lot of differences of what I have seen between different kinds of people and the way that they work. Like if you guys know Tony Ficelli's work, his rough work is just so good. It's so good. I wish I could draw like him, but I can't. I don't have the expertise or the education that he has had or the training that he has had to create work that way. Maybe if I take a couple classes in that sense, it can most likely teach me a lot more of like what I can and cannot do. And like maybe I can learn about certain shortcuts and all this stuff, which also, by the way, guys, there's really no end to learning. I'm taking another class just for myself. I'm taking a Blender class actually pretty soon to help me speed up my process when I'm doing environments, because I freaking hate environments, but it's my job anyway. So I got to do everything I can to help myself from going insane. And not have to think about all the technical aspects of it, because even if I do know how to figure it out, it's not worth the time because I'd rather just get to just working on the drawing. But as going back to the Art Center topic, I liked Art Center because my peers were insanely awesome to work with. Like you guys know Celine, there's Tenny Sakanyan, there are people like Yoan, Jesse Wong, Xiao Qing, like people like that. There's a bunch of people that came from Art Center that I am so grateful to have gone through my 5 years. Yes, I went to Art Center for 5 years, 5 years of Art Center with, because we had really good friendly competition together. But basically, it's because of that peership that we had that made Art Center so much more rewarding than I had ever expected it to be. So in terms of school, and I think it's not just art center, just school in general, having that camaraderie, basically. Friends that basically it feels like you have gone to war together during school. That is something that is so insanely valuable. Because it's kind of the same in the workplace. You kind of need people there with you to help you figure out all the things that you were doing. Because it's kind of hard. It's hard to do all of this stuff on your own. So even if you're taking things like workshops and classes like at CEA or Schoolism, it's actually good if you guys like maybe, for example, have like a little Discord chat for the class together and you guys just end up chatting and trying to figure things out. Have time, having time with, which like in this sense, like if you guys were not taking school basically, to emulate that group setting that you would have a Discord chat with your classmates in those workshops and things like that. And through that, like, I think what, actually, this is what me and a bunch of my friends still do. We, every weekend, and even when we're on the job, we're clocking in for our 9 to 6. We have VChats on while we're doing assignments. Not assignments, well, work basically. Whatever, what we're planning on doing, because me and a bunch of our friends we're taking the same Blender class together. We're planning on having like a day in the week if we feel like it. There's no requirement for us to have to do it. We're just gonna have the video chat on while we're working. So if we need to ask each other any questions about certain things, then we have someone there. It's just like being in a classroom, basic like a lab, working together on stuff. So I highly recommend doing that. Even if it's people that you have met online, I highly recommend doing that. If you just need people to bounce off of, if you want to have a space where you guys can share information together, learn things together, and things like that. Because man, I don't know where I would be without the people that I had learned things with. But Art Center, it is good because you have that 5-year experience, 4-year experience with your friends. However, what I would recommend when you're taking when you're in school, like Art Center or Cal Arts or things like that, because these schools have a very specific style to them, I would say, a very specific way of thinking, I guess is the better way to put it. I do recommend taking classes outside of it while you're also taking those classes in those schools as well. I took a lot of CDA classes while I was in school, given I was a very bad student. I didn't finish my homework because I was so busy with Art Center at the same time. But you're still retaining and learning more information, and you're also branching out, and rather than just having the set teachers that everyone would probably have, you're also gaining in something else from outside, basically. So if you do end up going in, I highly recommend doing that. There's so many places where you can like retain information. And right now we have the blessings of the internet where everyone is so generously sharing like so much information to like help each other out and things like that. So it's up to you. It's very expensive. But I do also want to remind people, because I do have a huge debt as well. It is very annoying, but I am in the position of trying to make sure as much as possible that that doesn't weigh me down in a lot of my decisions and the things that I want to do, because I don't think that's worth it. I will slowly pay it off over time. I don't want that to be my constant worry when I'm earning money and things like that. And then just It will chip away. But I don't think it's worth having a lot of that becoming a weight on your mind. Though one thing that you can do as much as possible is like if once you have enrolled into school, make the best out of it. Learn as much as you can. Use those resources that you have. Like ask as many questions as you want as possible with your teachers that are at your disposal, basically that you are spending a lot of money towards. So once you go into school, please do those things. I highly recommend doing that. I hope that answers. What do you think? Oh, Augustina says, what do you think are must-haves in a portfolio for someone who wants to get a job as a character designer? I've actually never really intended to become a character designer, but however, if your goal is to go into character design, make sure that your portfolio is very specific to character design. Don't add in other things like, as weird as it sounds, like, because I know like there are hybrid portfolios, and mine is kind of one of those. By some miracle, people have been giving me a lot like work from here and there. But if you want to go specifically into character design, make sure that your work is very specific towards it. And like, what is good as well is having multiple stories, because you're going to be working with multiple different subject matters.
Hi, I don't know if you can
Oh,
hear me.
hello.
Oh, hi. When you said multiple stories, did you mean like different art styles, or because
Oh,
I didn't
sorry,
get
I
it.
didn't.
Oh,
I
it's
like
fine.
trailed off right there. No, thanks for calling me out on that.
No, it's
Actually,
okay.
yeah, oh, sorry. Did you have anything more to say?
Oh no, no. Sure.
Okay. Cool. No, don't worry. Thank you for that. I lost my train of thought for a second there. So basically, what I mean by having multiple stories is that what you're going to end up doing when you're in the industry is that you're going to be working on multiple projects. So what I have found to be the most efficient way in terms of getting hired is that by multiple stories, meaning different types of genre, different types of like maybe demographic or like age level of like people that would be like, what if you go for G-rated, PG-rated, PG-13, and things like that. That can actually show that you have a lot of versatility in the work that you do. So what if it's visual development, background design, prop design, character design, having those different types of stories and projects that you are depicting can show how versatile you are. However, I do have to say this for sure. For character design, from my experience, character turnarounds are so important. And because that is going to be the majority of your job, actually, especially if you're going into series productions. And even in feature, you still need to know how to do turnarounds, because you're the one that is designing the character. You need to know what they look like in different angles. And through that, you're going to send that information to people like modelers who are going to get that information and try to translate that as much as possible into a physical form. So keep having to shrinker and over, taller and taller. Want pleats everywhere. But yeah, for example, I mean, I honestly don't think my portfolio is like the best example for this, but for example, I had different projects. I had the Blue Eyes project, I had Monkey King, I had Odyssey, which tonal wise, they're all different. But through that, based on those different projects with those different tones, I was able to show that I can draw animal characters, I can draw more nature-based things, I can do more cityscapes, I can do fantasy, I can draw humanoid figures and things like that. So through that, it's also by doing that, it is so much easier for you to organize your focus rather than trying to do so many things at once and trying to hit as many things as much as possible. It's better for you to have different projects, basically. And this doesn't mean that you are required. Picking that up, that's weird. That does not mean that you are required to do 3 projects in a year. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. And there's also like, because a lot of people also ask me about what's this. You guys probably have seen Celine's Phantom of the Opera project. A lot of people think that she had done that in 1 year. No, she absolutely did not. She spent almost maybe about half a year or so on just doing research and explorations. And then she spent another year on just continuing to work on the assignment, and another year after that, just still working on the assignment because she knows it's a lot of work that she needs to do. And she wanted to dedicate all of that time to making sure that she had the portfolio that she needed for her graduation. Which also means that rushing it is going to cause her to lose a lot of the concentration and time and effort that she would need to basically convey the information that she wants to convey. So when you're working on those assignments, I do want to also remind you guys, don't pressure yourself to get it done in a very specific amount of time. Take the time that you need. And usually what happens, actually what I would recommend, if you have a very specific story that you guys want to work on, like an existing, I recommend existing stories because you don't need to spend so much time trying to figure out the story itself, because that is also so much work. I recommend existing stories. Read the existing story and write down and highlight all of the characters that appear in the story. If you're doing character design, if you're doing visual development, highlight everything. Every time they introduce a very specific key prop, every time they introduce a new setting, every time they introduce a very important moment that motivates the story, write all of those things down and then do another pass over that and highlight the things that you think are the most important for you to do. So make 3 different lists. 3 is the priority list of things that you absolutely must do. Basically, things that look different enough from each other that it'll make your portfolio look very versatile. The second list of things that you would like to do, like additionals that you want to do for fun. The third list, you really don't need, basically, but you would like to do it if you have time. And honestly, the second and third list are basically things that you don't really need to do because you have your priority list. If you organize it like that, then you have your focus group right here. And you don't have to worry so much about it. Oh, but there's also this, and there's also this in the story. So you have less time to freak out, basically. The other thing as well is, instead of doing large projects, do smaller scale projects, basically, like a moment, like you're doing a key scene painting, a story moment painting for any story that you might have or any illustration that you might have in your mind. And with that painting, do a breakdown of what the environment design would look like, and then the props that go into that, and then also the characters that also go into that. Those are also like nice mini assignments that you can do for yourself instead of doing a huge overarching story. The convenience of doing things like that is that it also shows that you know how to do production work, because production work mainly consists of doing environment designs, colors, prop designs, texture callouts, set designs, things like that. So if you're doing visual development, putting things like that in your portfolio is really important. For a character, showing how much you know how to create different personalities with different shape designs, to show different people, basically, which is what you're doing. You're designing people specific for the project that you are working on. I highly recommend that you show just studies of people, figure drawings and things like that. Just do like maybe a couple pages, like maybe 2 or 3 pages in your portfolio of that to show that you know how to do those. And then with whatever project or story in mind, and I think in this case, like doing one story with an array of different personalities in that story is a really good one, because then you get to show this one world. Because this is another important thing for character design. You need to show and create characters that look like that they would all exist in one world, basically. So having one story for you, for character designers out there, this is really helpful to call out all the characters that you have in that story and design each of those personalities. And that is how you get to show like how you do different shape designs, personalities, and acting, showing all of those people in different acting poses. And when you're introducing those characters initially in your portfolio, like maybe the first character lineup that you do, don't do still T poses or anything like that, or just them standing around up and down. Some characters might be sitting, some characters might be in argument with each other. Show your lineup with people engaging with each other, and that shows so much more information than you just knowing how to design a character. It shows that you can do acting, it shows that you can do posing, it also shows that you can design these characters, you know, shape design and things like that. And then from there forward, make sure that you have you don't have to do turnarounds of all the characters. Do turnarounds of at least like maybe 2 or 3 characters that have different shape and body languages, or not body languages, that have different shape designs, basically. And that will show that you know how to turn these people. Doing head turns is really good, and also facial expressions. Those are also really important. And another thing as well, hand designs. Hand designs are also really important for character designers as well. Yeah, sorry, that like went on for a while, but I hope that answers a lot of I hope that answers your questions, your question, Augustina, and for other people as well that might have had portfolio questions. Okay, we'll go here. Oh, Dominique. Dominique is asking what led you to start developing a graphic novel, and what has that process been like? The graphic novel isn't of my creation necessarily. HarperCollins had reached out and asked if I wanted to do the 2nd volume of a book that they're already in the progress of. Because for those of you guys who know Tenny Isakanyan, mother of Duxie, Troll Hunters, like that wonderful lady, Tenny actually worked on the 1st volume of that book, and then now with like work piling in and everything, she asked if she could pass it on to me, and they were okay with it. And they hit me up, and then I just said, like, yeah, okay, I will take on this sudden burden of creating a 250-page graphic novel in full color. Basically, it's been fun. It's fun. It's basically kind of the fun stuff that a lot of people would like to do, I suppose, of like creating story moments, because that's the juicy stuff that you want to do, creating cool scenes and story moments and things like that. I do have to say, even if I try to anticipate as much as possible of how much work a graphic novel can be, it's so different once you actually start working on it. Because I am provided a script when I am working on this graphic novel, basically. Actually. So they provide me a script, and I am so grateful for the author for doing this as well. She also writes this page number, panel 1. This is what happens, and here's the dialogue. Panel 2, this is what happens, and here's the dialogue. So through that, I don't have to think about what I need to do in terms of like panel organization, graciously. But then the difficulty now, which is technically my job and why they have hired me, is that how am I going to organize all of those characters, all of those actions, all of those emotions, and all of those voice bubbles to fit into that one panel, and also trying to organize and fit those panels into that one page. That has been the hardest part, actually, of working on a graphic novel. It is so fun though, because all I get to do is just draw all the faces that I really want to work on. So there's been that. Hopefully that answers your question, Dominique.
Oh, I
But
was just, oh, can I just like ask like
yeah,
a
yeah,
follow-up
go
too?
ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna ask like how have your previous jobs like helped you with like like developing the graphic novel, and what's this like totally like a new territory that you're just like, I'm figuring this out.
Yeah, I'm figuring it out. I'm winging it basically. And thankfully I have Tenny who had worked on the first book. And as I mentioned, we're on VChat all the time while we're working. I get to see all of her highs and lows of working on graphic novels. So I know what to keep in mind of. And a lot of it has been just me trying to test the waters and everything, just trying things out and trying to figure out what pacing is good for me, because graphic novels are so much work. There's no way to avoid it. It's so much to think about. So what I mean, now webtoon artists and other graphic novel artists online, I have so much more respect for them, even more so than I had before. Any graphic novel artist out there I have so much more respect for right now, because this is so much to do. And I know a lot of them have, maybe they probably like work like 2 or 3 graphic novels a year, because frankly, graphic novel doesn't pay particularly well. So you would have to be juggling multiple projects in order for you to keep like a steady income, I would imagine. That also might be different depending on the person and where you're working at as well. So please don't take that for like as to tell all for a graphic novel, because this is only my first one. But yeah, I'm winging it. But I would say that I guess in terms of like technical ability, for the graphic novel aspect, it did help me figure out through a lot of like, it's different from what I'm doing right here, because this is more with you guys, this is more illustrative. But for graphic novel and the work that I'm doing like full time, for example, is the convenience of like, because I have to present so many ideas to the to directors, and I also had the privilege of also working as a story revisionist at a certain point early in my career. I did learn how to do quick sketches that convey just the enough details that I need to convey the idea, because right now I am in the rough drawing stage of the graphic novel, which means I just have to do 250 pages of just rough drawings, which means thousands of panels of rough drawings. And I don't have time to make every panel look very nice. I just need to make sure that the information is there. They know what is going on when I send it back to the publishers and they double check it. I hope that answers your question. Sorry, I keep like trailing off. If you need me to clarify, then please unmute and pop in and like ask for the questions if you need. And
No,
even
I
if I
think that
move
was
on,
it.
is that
Oh, I
good?
was
All
gonna say,
right.
yeah, I was gonna say that's like a great answer. Yeah, thank you.
All right, cool. Thank you. Also, if you guys have like other questions and thoughts, even if I have moved on to the question, you can ask me in between. Just unmute, like pop in and ask if you want me to like further explain certain things like that.
Could I please ask what brush you use? I like the varying thickness to the lines.
Oh, this one. This is actually Helen Chen's brush. Celine had grabbed it from somewhere. I believe it was from the class that she was taking with Helen. Back when Helen was teaching at CDA, from like years ago, I believe. And she handed it off to me. But this is the drawing brush that I believe Helen uses to both draw and paint. I believe you can probably find it floating around somewhere. If this is a kind of modified version, because I do like messing with pressures a lot, hence the varying like thickness and thinness of it. If you would like, I can post some of the brushes that I use in some of my work here and there. I have thousands, in case if you look right here, it's just they're all in.
That would be
It's
awesome.
insane. Yeah, I won't be able to send you all of these because I can't even make sense of any of this. So I'll send you at least the specific brushes that I have used in this. And if there's any specific brushes that I've used when I finish painting this for you guys, probably likely after this call, I'll post those as well. Yeah, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for asking.
Hi, I wanted to ask if you do these kinds of sessions like on a semi-regular basis, or is this like a specific to Lightbox kind of situation?
Oh, it's a very specific to Lightbox thing. If you guys like, I can see, because in all honesty, guys, I'm a lazy ass. I like bumming around. I'm actually on my hiatus right now. I have been nothing but a marshmallow my entire time during this hiatus. But yeah, if I can fit into my time occasionally, because I would like to do these, because I do like doing these. I like talking to you guys, and if there's anything that I can share that can help or give insight to certain people, then I wouldn't mind doing that. If this talk is especially helpful for you guys, then first, I'm grateful that you guys think so, but also like if I'm glad to be of some assistance to others if it is. But yeah, if I do happen to have another talk in the future, I'll let you guys know. And the only active space that I am on currently is Instagram, because I don't like juggling different talks or not different talks. I don't like juggling different social media platforms, because I don't really care for it. There are other people that do have their preference, but it's just like personally for me, like it's just not quite my thing. I will share amongst different platforms if I need to. So like maybe for like these talk announcements, if I get the chance to do another one, then I'll let you guys know through like on Twitter or Facebook, but most likely I will be updating everything on Instagram all the time. Okay, someone asked which class I'll be taking. It was, as I mentioned, it's the Blender class at CDA. So me, Celine, and Tenny will be taking that. It's gonna be good old art center times, trying to work and take a class at the same time. So it'll be fun. Let's see. So, I'm seeing a couple people mention my room. Yeah, this direction is the least aesthetic direction of my room. It should be facing the direction that I am facing, because I have all of these like antiques and knickknacks and candlesticks, and all of my plants are lined up against the window and things like that. So I'll post pictures eventually when I ever get the time for it. Let's see. I don't have a YouTube channel. Maybe someday. Someday when I'm not being lazy. Maybe I will. I wouldn't mind doing that. It actually does sound fun. I know it's a lot of work, and that's the part where I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. But perhaps someday. When it does happen, I'll let you guys know. Let's see. Let's see. Christina asked, would you say that having drawings with the characters in action is as important as turnarounds? Yes, absolutely. You need both. Action, the reason why action is also so important when you're doing character design is you need to show what the range of motion the character is capable of. And because there are different shape languages to each character, it means, for example, their body is like stretching this way or coming in this way. The shapes will vary, which means you need to determine like what those shapes will look like when they're stretching out this way or squashing in like this. So that's why action poses are so important. And also, like, for example, if you're maybe designing characters that have like maybe a feather in their hair, or maybe if like it's a lizard type of character, if they're acting certain ways, if they have like maybe little antennae or little parts of their costume, or if they have little frills, or for the lizard character, maybe if they have little fins everywhere, do those things like suddenly spark up when they're in like a shocked position, or when they're sad, do they droop down, and how does it droop down? So there's like different things like that you do need to determine, and why action poses are just as important as turnarounds. They're all part of the production, and basically how I try to think when I am doing work is, what can I put in to the assignments that I have been given that will give the next person, basically, which would usually be a modeler, or maybe the character, or maybe the character designer, or the story artist, especially for the story artist. How am I giving enough information for the next person down the line to be able to know what is going on, for them to have what they need to create what they need to create? That's usually how I think, or try to ask myself when I'm working as much as possible. Is background design kind of a beginner friendly position? It depends. I wouldn't say it's, because the thing is, what I have noticed in series productions, at least, there are people that usually start off as prop designers a lot, and then they transition into background design. I've usually seen that step by step happen. There are people that are actually a lot more comfortable and a lot more efficient and have a lot more fun at doing background design. And this can be either background drawing, layout, basically, or especially for like 2D productions. It could either be that, or it can be background painting, because those are very two different positions in productions, basically, in 2D productions especially. And nowadays, now we have the hybrid of like 3D, 2D looks in a lot of productions. Yeah, it's important to know, or do, basically, depending on what you want to do. I wouldn't say it's necessarily I wouldn't call it a beginner or advanced position. Prop has been considered a beginner position in a lot of cases. And then from there, I do see people that actually do really enjoy doing prop design, and they're really good at it. There are certain people like that, and they do get called up for just doing prop design. And this is for both series and feature productions that I have seen. And they just prefer doing that because their material indication is so good, their shape design is so good, and their colors are so good. But yeah, I wouldn't say, if you do enjoy doing background design, whether it be layout or painting, and you want to go in through that, do a lot of studies, take a lot of photographs, or just look at photographs and then try and make your own designed layout and background off of those. Play with the colors as much as possible, or play with the line work and the shape design as possible. See if there are certain styles that are out there for different productions, or even just through illustrations. It doesn't have to come from like an existing production. If there are certain styles from different artists and different books, graphic novels, and things like that you would like to replicate based off of a photograph that you are looking at, go for it. That's good practice, because chances are, and like I mentioned before, showing that you are versatile is honestly have been one of the most useful things that has been for me, at least, to keep an influx of work coming in. And the nice thing, and the other thing as well, guys, like it's and especially like once you start working, you get to show off even further of like how much your capabilities are. And through that, yeah, and then you just, people will talk and spread the word of like, oh, like there's this person that also knows how to do X, Y, and Z. Because most of the work that I have gotten has always been through word of mouth from another person suggesting me to another person, and this has been the case for like a lot of my peers as well. Everyone's kind of shared like, oh, this person exists right here. Oh, this person happens to be available, or this person I know has done the type of work that you were looking for. So there is that additional bit. Yes, so continue asking questions. If you want to pop in through audio, please do. Anna Chen asked, what kind of steps did you take on your journey to learning clothing for your character designs? I looked at so many illustrations. People like Al Dorn, Lion Decker. Let me see. Let me just. And it's almost 3. I'll keep the chat running for as long as needed. I guess until let me see. But yeah, I'll keep the chat running for a little while longer because I don't mind. And like if you guys want to hang out for as long as you would like, then I don't mind that. We can just keep the questions rolling in. I will probably, I know I said about 3 to 4 hours. If you want, let's see, I started almost at 2 because of the tech complications, but I can go until 5. Is that okay with you guys? For those of you that have the time to stay and stuff, I'll probably go until then. I'll cap it at 5, basically. Okay, so but going back to this, I studied so many people because fabric is a very technical aspect of it, but you do need to know how folds work when you're doing character design. So Albert Dorn has been a really, can I click on this? Okay. Oh, okay, so that's pretty much it. But yeah, Al Dorn has been really great for like fold studies, and like through here, you do need to understand certain technical aspects of like folds, such as where on the body are things pinching, like for example, like here on the armpit area, and like things like elbows, waists, depending on where the person is leaning, will also be pinching as well. And usually those areas are where you're going to see the most amount of like accented dark contrast of folds. That's where a lot of the folds will occur. And then usually those folds wrap around the body. So for example, if you look at this policeman right here, this is where a lot of the folds gather under his arm, basically, and you see it wrap around the body downward, basically to the other side of his head. So it's those little things that you need to understand. It's technical aspects of it. And the other thing as well, looking at these illustrations, study these as much as possible, do copies of these as much as possible, and then also try and see like where the repeating patterns are, where certain folds are occurring for you to understand the technical aspect of it. Another person that actually really, which was my art center crush, and I learned a lot about folds from as a result, is Claire Hummel. And I'm sure a lot of you guys know Claire Hummel. Her work is freaking amazing, but I learned a lot about costume and folds from her because she understands, because she studies a lot of historical costume like on the side. But I learned a lot about like, okay, so there are these types of pleats that occur. There's these types of pleats that occur. This is different from the ones that are on her chest, the ones that are on her shoulders, and then even the ones that are around her waist, and they create different types of folds as well. But in her case, like what I liked about it is that it's so nice and decorative, these folds. So there's also the aspect of like making sure like you don't have to make your folds so technically accurate because you are still designing. So when you're doing, because from the costume design classes that I had taken while I was at Art Center, the biggest thing that I also learned was that don't just copy exactly what is there. You can simplify those folds. If there's way too many folds on that part of the body, it doesn't look quite nice and it doesn't look quite nice on paper. Simplify it. And then through that, you also end up learning what works for you. And even from that, it ends up becoming a stylistic choice of like what works for you, because you're problem solving it for yourself as well. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I love Claire's work. I showed you Albert Dorn. Lion Decker, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know of Lion Decker. Lion Decker is also really good. It's a lot of illustrators from like this period, basically. They're also really good at showing you different methods of like folds occurring on the body. And I'm sure like some of you guys might know Carlotta. I don't know how to pronounce her online handle, but it's Inimatel, I think. I think her capability of drawing figures and costumes it's so insanely good. It's just everything she does, I'm just like, it's just so delicious. Let's see. It's like she's so good at folds. She's so good at these things. Like, and she does it so tastefully as well. But yeah, and the fun thing about this as well, you also end up noticing everyone also approaches designing fabric and costumes like so differently. And as for costume design itself, shape is so important. Shape language is so important in it. And in this case, what I like to do is, and what a lot of other people end up doing, and even if you like look at what Claire Hummel had done for, where is it? Like even for things like this, there's a lot of like tapering in and tapering out. Where do you see like pinches and where you see like certain folds, and knowing where the seams are, which can also help indicate anatomy as well, and also indicate form. Like if you have buttons that are going down the body, that'll show you where the center line of the body is. So it's things like that that help you design your costume and also make that a lot more believable as well. But usually in the beginning, I'm not too worried about trying to make the costume make too much sense. I'm just trying to design the shape, and then I try to make it into something that does make sense, basically by adding in buttons and seams and pockets and little decorative like edges, and just tailoring it basically. Hopefully that answers your question. Christina asks, as a junior Viz Dev and character designer, do you think that is a good idea to put character in the background as a motion to sort of see how they interact, or is it better to have plain sheets? Are you talking about in paintings, Christina? Okay, so it's actually good to, because you need to remember as well that that the jobs that we are doing is in order for us to help convey a story. So when you're doing environment designs and even like piecing paintings and movement paintings, it actually is really helpful to indicate figures in your environment to show how they are interacting with the environment. And also at the same time, in my opinion, it helps sell the scene a lot better to your superiors, your art director, your production designer, or even to the director, basically, because it helps them picture what the scene looks like a lot better as a result. So in my opinion, I know there are some people that do it, but in my personal taste, I like including characters into the environments because of those reasons that I had just mentioned. But in the beginning, but if you're doing a character portfolio as well as a visitor portfolio, just indicating those characters in your environments do let people know that you do know how to design characters, you do know how to place them, you do know how to pose them. But it's also still good to indicate like at least a spreadsheet or two of a lineup of characters in how I mentioned of them in different posings and all that stuff, and also like another page of just like different interactions of like maybe just a bunch of drawings of like two varying people just interacting with each other, doing different things, or just doing actions basically. Doe Park, could you talk about your work with Riot, how you got that? What do you to work for them? Summer naming. So I did not work for Riot that long. I was working on just the Ezreal series for them when I guess they were reintroducing it. I played it that one time. just that one time for me to figure out the game and how Ezreal interacts with the environment, and for me to get like references on how I could draw him out, basically. So I actually don't play League of Legends at all. It's not my thing quite. I'm a more linear game person, or for example, like I really love my From Software games like Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro. How do I'm over here? So you see him coming in. Yeah, that's more my jam. And as for how I got it, through word of mouth, the art director contacted me about just if I was open for a freelance, like for like about a month or two, for freelance basically. And I think it was because he saw my work through Instagram, actually. And then he just asked if I was willing to pop in for a bit to help them out. And it's just history from there. And it just kept on going from there. And honestly, I still really like that Ezreal piece I had done. It was pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm like scrolling down because you guys move too fast for me. Brioni, hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. Are there any books, other resources you recommend for studying character design, getting inspiration? Honestly, the art of books from like productions are really useful for character design. And just to see what production work for character design looks like, basically, from like posing and what I had mentioned, like turnarounds, actions, and like how much exploration that they have to do for characters. And then the outside of that as well, just picking up on designs that you really like. Like I mentioned, you don't have to just look at character designers to source ideas and methods of problem solving into your work. Basically, you can look at other graphic novel artists that are, maybe there might be some Vista people that have like really nice shape language. You might not, like for example, maybe there's certain things about the character design is like not quite what you would think would fit for animation if you're going in for animation, for example, but then you do like some of their shape languages and you can adapt some of their shape languages and their ideas. So you can do things like that. Like Anna Katish, I really like for her shapes. So I do end up looking at her designs quite often, just to, if her shape language calls for it, then I do end up borrowing like a lot of like her designs as well, like because she does enjoy doing like long spindly legs and like very top heavy. She likes balancing weights on her character, so I do like learning from that aspect of her design. She likes weight balancing on her characters a lot. This page has been like not moving for a while. Sorry, guys. But I hope despite the lack of progress in this drawing, you guys are getting something out of this. I really apologize. Here comes the boy. Yes, hi.
Hi, I had a question about character design also.
Go ahead.
Is there a difference on how you approach design for animal versus human characters?
Let's see. I think I have pretty much, because in my personal opinion, humans are so much harder to design. For humans, because the problem with humans, especially if you're working with a client, is that everyone has a very specific expectation of how a human should look, of how a human should be designed, of what their interpretation of this personality is, basically. So I found human characters to be very difficult. So a lot of times I do have to, what has helped me the most with human characters is looking up actors and actresses from existing film and TV that have the same personalities as to what you are looking for. Basically, that might match your character as much as possible. I'm just looking up the photographs and all those stuff, and even like old historical photographs of different people that existed over time. I have to gather that a lot of times in order for me to design a human character. And through that, I do drawings based off of those pictures. And then from there, I design it and simplify it from there, like constantly until I get it to the level that I want it to be. And I just do a bunch of those and I just send it off to my boss, basically, whether it's my art director or the director or production designer. And then from there, then they give me feedback and they're like, oh, I actually like this one. And they're like, can we do a couple more? I do like the direction of this though. And then from there, I just have to keep going. And then once we finally nail something, after a couple passes of drawings, then we start like, okay, I think it's finally time for us to start doing turns and start like fleshing out these characters, basically. So that's how I do. But for animals, I actually haven't had as much problems with as I have had with humans. Human characters, no, animal characters, I just play with the shapes a lot. But one thing that you do need to keep in mind of is that at least knowing, I'm gonna do a very poor version of it, but making sure you have the head. And the muzzle and the ears. If you have this line that goes around, the ears would be anywhere along that line, basically. And then usually animals don't really have a thinner neck unless if there's like certain animals that really do call for it. And here is the rib cage, and there is a portion that connects that rib cage to the pelvic area. And usually it's these three things that vary in sizes that can indicate what type of animal that you are drawing. So it's usually this aspect that I really needed to get down in order for me to know how to like manipulate it to get the right animals that I need. So for example, like even just for that, I can get, like I have like a longer neck, but then maybe the torso is a lot smaller. They have that, and then they have a longer pelvic, but then they have longer legs. I'm pretty sure like whatever I'm doing might be like cringing those animal experts out there, but then this has been what has working for me, like for all of my character designs. And like just through that like larger barrel chest, and then the tube in the middle, it goes from like wider to something more narrow. And then when you're having them stand upright, you have the rib cage, you have the barrel, and you have the pelvic, and you have them standing up, basically. For 1 second, I can also show you. This might be a better, faster way. There's this stuff as well. So just by knowing those basic three parts of the body can basically help you figure out how to proportion your animals, basically. And a lot of these they have ended up being a lot more humanoid. But if you even look at her, the thing that weirded me out on some animals, it works for some, depending on the character that you're trying to design. But in most cases, I've always had, like if you look at it here, they have this arch to their body. So their butts are a little bit more pushed back, basically. Like if you look at her as well, her hips are a little bit more pushed back than it is from her torso. So those little things actually helped me kind of indicate a little bit more of an animalistic viewpoint. Some of these have like costumes, so I was like, it doesn't really matter if you see their body or not. But having a little bit of a butt on some of these animals actually really do help. And same thing with here. You have the upper body, you have the waist, and you have the pelvic area right here. So it's usually that type of breakdown. You see right here, the chest is a little bit more out, the butt is like sticking out a little bit. And this will also give you a nice clean direction for their tail once it comes out of the body. So yeah, it's things like that. Like I believe most of these episodes have come out, but yeah, that's how I have approached animal. And through this anatomy, basically it can help, because for a lot of shows, they try to stray away as much as possible from the furry look, basically. So keeping them having those like that anatomical breakdown that I had just mentioned actually helps a lot to stray away from that, basically.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
It
no
was so
problem.
helpful.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, just do like shape breakdowns of like existing animals as well. And that's the thing, like, because through those like that body breakdown that I had just mentioned, once you look at those different animals, you see that they all have very specific portions to it. And that'll show you like what animal that is usually. Let's see. Matthew is asking, do you have any advice for students who are intimidated by the amount of things they need to learn to reach an industry standard skill level? I kind of mentioned it earlier. Do not, basically, first off, do not pressure yourself to have to be at a certain skill point based off of what you're seeing from others, because everyone has a different speed of learning. And this is not a fact of like, oh, this person just has like more conveniences or things like that. It's not so much that. It's because, as I mentioned, everyone is so different. Their circumstances are also very different. A lot of the things that are going on are also different. And due to that, like also how much information that they can retain as well is also very different. So therefore, as a result, I don't really like the competition of like, oh, this person is moving a lot faster than the other. It doesn't make sense for me. It's not fair. Because I can guarantee, like, there are so many people I've met in this industry so far that have started so much later than what is the accepted norm of people starting work in this industry. They have families, they have kids, they have so much going on, and then they still decide to take the time to finally, even later on, like take the pacing that they need to study and get where they need to, which means like I wouldn't say put like a time limit or a deadline on it. This is clearly not working for me. I don't. Nope, actually, it's just. Nope, that's not it. Nope. So in this case, one thing also is ask yourself, what is it that you, sorry, it's like frizzling out. Okay. What do you want to do and what do you enjoy most doing? Is it drawing or is it painting? And if it's painting, do you like color designing or do you actually like material rendering? Do you like lighting? If you're in the drawing aspect of it, do you like doing layout? Do you like doing character design? Do you like drawing props? What aspects of those things do you like? And from there, focus on the thing that you really do enjoy and hone it as much as possible. And that is where you will develop the most, like in the end. And along the way, it doesn't mean that you should completely bar yourself off from everything else. If you still would like to learn other things, please do so. Because it's, in my opinion, learning different things can still help your career and just the work in general that you do. Sorry, I just lost my track again. Basically, through that, continue to learn, but do not try to do everything at once. So what you're asking is like just having the pressure of like needing to learn so many different things just to get to an industry standard level. There is no age cap. I can guarantee that. You shouldn't feel required to have to know everything at a certain time. If you feel like you need more time, then by all means, that's okay too. Because there should not be a required timeline for when people should be starting work. I don't think that's fair because a lot of in my opinion, those things are things that are out of your control. It's not something you can predict. There are seasons, of course, there are definitely seasons, but you don't know what is going on behind the lines that is allowing other people to be hired or not hired. It could be because someone inside knows someone. It could be because they were looking for a very specific thing. It could be because they want to hire internally. So through those things, like if, for example, for people that are starting to work pretty soon, don't feel pressured, don't feel discouraged because like work hasn't come in immediately. That's honestly why this whole thing is difficult. So a lot of it does have to come with like a lot of perseverance as well. So do one thing at a time, like how I mentioned. Focus on the thing that you enjoy the most, or at least for you is the least stressful for you to work on, because then your head's not as much in overdrive, basically, to try and figure things out. So as a result, it can probably help you figure out what you need to do, what you can do from there. And then from there, you will have something that is quite developed. And then you can start picking up work from there. And I also do have to say that just because you started on one specific thing in your career, like for example, you started off as a viz dev artist, or you started off as a character designer or things like that, but you want to eventually trek out into something else, you're more than welcome to. People will hire you based off the work that you are doing, or what they see in your portfolio, what you present to them. In the end, that is what they look at. So yeah, don't pressure yourself for that because our head space can only handle so much. You need time to take a break in order for you to let the information that you had just retained actually kind of marinate in your head for you to make it into something that you can use, basically, in the end. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. What's a dream project you love to work on, personal or professional? Maybe an art goal shooting within the next couple of years. I have so many things I want to do, but there's a lot I'm juggling right now. I do want to go back into the Monkey King project that I think some of you guys might be familiar with, that Celine and I had done. I do want to reboot that so badly, so freaking badly. There's so much I want to do. I want to introduce other Asian cultures into that story because based off like what we had researched or found out like later on, actually most of the Monkey King story occurs in a lot of the Southeast Asian countries and a lot of the the islands, actually. So we're like, that is brilliant. We need to do that. It'll create so much more opportunity for us to design so much more things as a result. And we're like, oh, okay, yeah, well, guess we gotta do this again then. So Monkey King definitely is a thing that I do want to readdress sometime down the line. And I have other stories. Like there's one called Blue Iris that I really wanted to work on, which is a much more grim story, but I personally can't start on that unless if I know exactly what I'm going to be doing with the story itself in terms of like what the character motives are instead of just making a bunch of moments. That one I want to make into a graphic novel. So I'm already practicing graphic novel right now. So that'll be my first insight into it before I can actually dig in and do something a lot more intensive. Yeah, as odd as it sounds, I actually want to find a way where I can be a lot more independently sustainable outside of just having to work in the industry in order for myself to create, basically. And a lot of the things I want to do are such large scale projects, but it's hard to do when I'm constantly working. Hold on, give me one moment. This thing is being finished. There you go. Yeah, just if you guys had any idea of all the things I have going on in my head, I want all the angst, all the drama that I want to draw. There's a lot that I want to do. There's also like more things with Detective Taro and Haru, which for some of you guys that may not know it, it's about our cats, basically, but in a Sherlock Holmes and Watson kind of story. So that is something that we also really wanted to do, of just like random shenanigans that they get into. So I hope that answers your question with a very unprecise answer, because I have a lot of things I want to do. I do eventually, one day, maybe someday, I'll be a show creator, but I'm not ready for that right now. That's too much responsibility. My little old brain and little old me can't handle all of that at the moment. Okay, Michelle Lim asks, what is a common entry-level position in a studio? It's not, okay, what was this? Oh, should I go for what I want, or is it better to have more breadth? It's okay to have different things in your portfolio. You can have a main focus of a very specific thing. And what I would personally recommend is for you to have a very specific focus. Or if you need, you can have two different portfolios. You can have a design portfolio, you can have a character design portfolio, for example. But make sure that those two are very different things for when you are applying, it creates less confusion, basically. Because sometimes when recruiters and people are reviewing a portfolio, they're going to see that maybe they're looking for a viz dev artist, but there's a lot of character work in it for some reason. And they're like, does this person want to do character design, or do they want to do viz dev? Often that occurs. Hence why if you're doing, sometimes if you're applying and you actually have that type of like body of work where it consists a lot of both, it might be a good idea for you. You can include some just to show like, oh, this person also can do character. But if it's a little bit ambiguous, then it can create a lot more confusion as a result. And I can't really say what is a common entry level position in the studio. I think that that depends on what type of position itself you're asking for, whether if it's character or visual development. But then I don't know what an entry level position exactly is necessarily. Character really, like I mentioned before, it really depends on what the studio and what the project itself is looking for. Where did this person go? Where are you? Sorry, like I lost one of my references. Okay, there you go. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. So I have found character can also be pretty versatile between series and feature sometimes, depending on the style, of course. And feature does tend to be a very specific stylistic choice, like because Disney has their own brand. Pixar also has their own very specific brand as well, same as DreamWorks in terms of like the type of like characters that they often tend to look for. And sometimes it's not the case when they're having when they're trying to create very specific projects. That actually doesn't require that brand look that they usually have. But yeah, it depends on what kind of character you're trying to do as well. It really depends. For VizDev, most of the time entry level, like very entry level, has been trainee positions, which they often open up in the summer for a lot of these places. I actually highly recommend those because if you do those, then you end up learning a lot about, you're in a position to learn, basically. You're in a position to make mistakes, you're in a position to learn. And then through that, you're usually set up with a mentor that can teach you a lot of the things about production. You are often left to your own devices as well at the same time. But you do have the lovely convenience of being the one that doesn't quite, that is still trying to figure things out, basically.
Not the question, but I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to do all of this. It's been so amazing and valuable so far. I've filled out a whole notepad of stuff.
No, I'm glad. Okay. So I'm glad if this is helpful for you guys, then yeah. I'm very grateful for you guys. I'm taking the time to like just chill out and just listen to me ramble on, basically. Let's see. Oh, I'll let you guys know when the link is shared online. It'll be on YouTube most likely. And yeah, I'll let you guys know when it happens. Just keep an eye out on Instagram, most likely. Yeah. I'll have it up right there for both this whole session and also the demo. Once I finish it, I'll just record the rest of it on the side. I'm just scrolling through the questions right now. And let's see. Do you have any advice for illustrators excited about getting into character design and animation? It seems that studios like animation experience for hiring. So discouraged about applying. I just keep applying. You really don't know. And it really is such a project-based thing as well. And it's true, a lot of studios do have their level of comfort as to like whether or not they would want to bring in someone new or not. But I do guarantee at the same time, there are a lot of people out there that are very willing to take chances with very green people too. Because there's different types of people. There are certain people that do want to look at experience, and there are certain people that are more so looking for the person that is more suitable towards the project that they are trying to create, basically. So don't feel too discouraged. This whole job hunting thing still sucks. Even I still hate it. And then once you start hearing back from people as well, then you have the waiting game, and that also sucks. I don't think it stops necessarily. There's a part of you that does get used to it, but it still sucks. Drop this even lower. This is kind of distracting. Okay. Forgive me. We're constantly losing track of mine and trying to. Man, this is hard. I should have just stuck with my past method. Usually before I would do pre-record a whole illustration and I would play it out for people. I'll have to stick with that tactic next time because it might be distracting as well, but I can focus on one thing usually as a result if I do that. Let's see. Oh, I see James. Hi, James.
Hi, Grace. How are you doing?
Hi, how are you doing? I'm good. Multitasking is hard.
Yeah, I could never do what you're doing.
I'm not doing, to be honest. I'm still bitter that they haven't announced anything for Elden Ring recently.
Oh, yeah, especially with was it yesterday's PlayStation event?
Yep. Well,
Or Thursday?
KOTOR will be very exciting at least.
Oh, I haven't played the first game, but I heard people really like it.
Yeah, same here. Let's see. Okay, someone asked, what would you recommend? Oh, okay. Do you have any advice for illustrators excited about? Oh wait, I already answered that. Okay. Would you say that for portfolio, is it better to have more finished rendered pieces or line arts? Just like the animal designs and different variations. It's good to show process. That's the thing. Because your production designer and art directors will be checking in for your process because they need to see ideas. So if you have rough thumbnails, put a section of that. If we have color roughs, put a section of that. Just show the whole progress of it because you're going to need to see all of those things when they're working anyway. back actually. Give me 1 second. When it hits around 4, I'll actually switch to this and I start coloring something so I can actually show you guys like how I block in colors and things like that. But yeah, I guess the biggest thing for that question was basically just show as much process as much as possible. Yeah, thumbnails, colors, all those things like that. Same thing with characters, same thing with biz dev. Characters, you're gonna need to show your ideation phases as well. And then from there, how you end up simplifying it further and further until you get to the final one, which then you end up turning around and then you do action poses for and expressions. What's the difference between designing a character for feature and for TV animation? I think the line has been blurred personally recently, especially with like streaming services coming out. The budget that has been put into a lot of series productions, which nowadays it's a lot of places call it more so series productions than just TV. Because of that, the amount of ability or like capability of what they can achieve with the character has kind of been expanded a lot more. So we can these days we're actually we're able to afford doing a lot more complicated character designs. Like usually most of the time when we're doing characters, especially if it's for 2D animation, and I still think that applies right now, unless if they have a very expensive vendor studio. Vendor studio is the studio that they hire to create the final product and the animation for them. And usually for places like Disney and DreamWorks, they have them in-house. But yeah, so that's what vendor studios are in case some of you need to know. But yeah, it really depends on the vendor studio. If they have a really expensive vendor studio, then they are capable of doing a lot more and they're able to take on more difficult character designs. So it really depends, which means like sometimes when you're doing character as well, you might be required to basically simplify down a lot of the characters. But usually what I do in the beginning, I try to do something simplified, but then I still want to add in as much as possible that might still be achievable. So I do send in something more complicated, like characters that have more looser clothing, or like usually long hair, like bits and ponytails are not recommended because it's a lot for them to rig, especially if they're doing 3D. And if they're in 2D, that means that they have to animate that motion in addition as well. So that is a huge thing that you have to think about when you're doing character design. How much motion am I applying that might actually complicate this process a lot more? So nowadays that line has kind of blurred, but definitely since a lot of TV productions, like from Cartoon Network and even like Disney TV and places like that, there are a lot of 2D productions. So learning how to simplify in order for ease of animation, especially because there's so many episodes that usually are applied into those, it is important for you to know how to simplify those characters. So that's usually the biggest difference that I see. Budget is a difference, the type of production is a difference, and the amount of time that you have in the production is also a difference. If I'm trying to scroll through these as much as possible. So if I happen to miss a question, please let me know. And just to clarify, yes, I'm gonna upload this panel once we're done onto YouTube for you guys, in case you guys, this is not much of a demo. It's just more of a podcast, it seems more like. So please, yeah, excuse me for that. This is very hard to multitask, I am realizing, but do let me know if you have any more questions or if I missed anything, please take up the mic and yeah, ask away.
I don't know if this question gonna make sense, or maybe it just. And also, it's 1 a.m. So I'm sorry.
No worries, it's okay. Thank you for staying up this long.
Actually, I started painting along, so I was
Okay.
like getting into it, and I didn't even realize. But I don't know. I don't know if it's like a good question, but like how do I like sometimes like oh my god, I have to think how to phrase this. Like
It's okay. Take your time. We got plenty.
it's hard sometimes to balance doing studies and just trying to improve technically, and then doing my like not even personal work, just like projects for like my portfolio and stuff. And it's like I get stuck in this loop of like I don't know, like I don't feel like I'm good enough to do projects, but it's like it's not really, it's like it's counterintuitive, like you have to do both, I guess, but it's like it's so hard to find the balance.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I still like a lot of us still struggle with that. There's a lot of things that we're like, oh, I wish I could do these things because I want to make something so badass that is in my head. I don't know if I'm capable of it. I think that's still that it still applies to the fact that like don't concern yourself too much on making it perfect right now. You can always try out different ideas and different things that you want to do, whether if you may or may not have the capability of it right now, and just see where it's at. Because the best thing that can happen from that case is that once you have done it, then you see what aspects of the piece that you are working on you can improve on. You can do maybe this thing a little bit better. You can take a break from it and then readdress it again later. And the other thing as well, like if you feel too intimidated from doing a certain thing for your personal work, then work on something that you feel more comfortable with first, and then slowly chip away at the larger piece that you are doing. You're not required to stick to one piece and have to do that one piece all the way to the end. I have like so many drawings that I don't know if I'll ever pick up, but I have them in the back, but I'll pick them up later when I feel like it. But and this won't be one of them, I promise. But but you don't have to pressure yourself to be like, but I really need to do this right now, because we're all still learning. We're still figuring things out. There are a lot of environment things that I want to do right now, but I like my time. I like being lazy, as I kind of mentioned before. So I'm doing the stuff that actually doesn't have to give me stress, like drawing characters and drawing figures and things like that. And I'll just spend my time like polishing that as much as possible to make it look nice. Because one, like I already feel stressed when I'm at work because there's a lot to do. I don't particularly feel like having to put that pressure on me further when I'm outside of work. So which is the reason why like me and a bunch of friends are taking that Blender class that I had mentioned earlier, because we want to do so many environments, we want to do so many sets, we want to make so many things, but it's so exhausting and it's so hard. So that's our like, we'll hold, it's okay, we'll use what we can for now. Once we take it, whenever that'll be, then we'll take it, and then once we get the skill set, then yay, we're finally there, we can start like actually chipping away at it. It's hard when you give yourself like a timeline for this stuff, because it feels like all of a sudden like you must do this thing, but if you don't really have to, then it's really not necessary for you to do that. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good, and it's always fun to just try it. You can always try it. And another thing as well, like looking at other people's work. sometimes it's good to just try and guess how that person might have created that piece, basically. Like, did they use photo references? Did they actually photo bash it and then they painted on top of it as to how they had achieved that look, which I guarantee so many of us end up doing. A lot of us really end up doing that because because in our heads we're like, our life is too short. I have a kid to take care of, which is this guy right here, this little furry thing. So I don't have time to constantly try and do this all the time. It's a great learning experience, I'm sure, but then I would rather spend my time doing something else. So it's okay. So, which means like, if you need to cheat on certain things, like by all means, find all the 3D references that you can find online that can be of use to you. I don't know if you guys have heard of this before. There's also this thing called Pixel Squid. And basically this place, like if you just type in bike, and it comes up with all of these 3D models of people having this couple of different bike designs, and you just let's click this one, view it, click it, open it. There you go. And you take it and you can rotate it into whatever angles that you need. So what I often do is I just end up screenshotting this and plopping it in, and then when I'm drawing it on top of it, I just adjust a lot of the shapes and designs as much as I want, but I have the general brain work pretty much done right here, so I don't have to think too much about it. Shortcut away, like I guarantee, like there's nothing wrong with doing stuff like this, because your job is to create ideas, basically. So use that resource as much as possible. It's there for you guys to use. And even using things like, yeah, Blender is such a huge resource now. What is it? SketchUp is a huge resource now as well. So if there are things that can help with shortcomings aren't the right word, but things that you feel like that you need help on, find the resources that can actually help give you the leg up for that. And in this case, using photographs, using cutting out different textures and paint and putting it into your painting and then painting over it to help you figure out that texture, and you can color modify it and like adjust a little bit of it as well. Like do all those things that can help with you in the end, and that'll save you so much time. And I guarantee that is the way we have to do in production, because we don't have time. We don't have time to do everything and try to learn everything from the ground up on the job, because a lot of the times we're doing things for the first time as well in the industry, and we're winging it all the time. We're winging so many things all the time. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of relevant, or I guess because recently I've started using some Blender, like for my like stuff, and it's like almost feels like cheating.
It does, but now I'm like, I like cheating. It's okay to cheat. It's very nice to cheat. There's nothing wrong with it, as long as I'm not plagiarizing. But that's like, you have to be going real deep in some way for you to just be plagiarizing, which yeah. But using 3D models and things like that, like you should use it. It's there. It's to make us happier, to have nice dinners, to go out, watch a movie that we've been wanting to watch, play games and all that stuff. So by all means, we should all be using those as much as possible. And like even through that, once you start doing those, using those resources as much as possible, you still learn from using those 3D models. You end up noticing how form turns by looking at those, because you keep looking at these and you're actually using the item, you're using the tool. So subconsciously you end up retaining a lot of information, more so than you might realize.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, thanks. No, I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. Hope that helps. Yes, Turbo Squid is a really good one as well. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah, and
it's hard to cheat. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh no, there's also, I mean, you probably know it, but like mega scans, like bridge.
I actually don't know that one.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
It's you gotta look at it. It's
Okay, I will look at it. I'm writing it down.
it's
What's
like
it called?
three mega scans. It's a 3D
Mhm.
library that I think it's
Okay.
by Epic Games, and they
Okay,
basically
cool.
they used it in the demo for the Unreal 5, but it's like free to use, and it's
I
you
see.
can download a thing that imports it into Blender automatically. So yeah.
Okay, well, taking Blender class soon. I'm going to be cheating the heck out of my class as well.
Yeah, exactly. You don't even need to know how to do textures. You just click a button.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. All right. You know, it's kind of a bust. I'll finish this later for you guys. Let's go on to coloring something because we're going to be here for ever if you guys have to wait on me. It's down here, actually. What was this? What is this? I don't. Oh, that's what that is, I think. Is it? No, it's not. I have no idea what this is. All right. Let's see. Oh, and please, like, just chime in, unmute, like, talk away. It doesn't have to be questions. We could just be chatting and things like that.
I guess I'll chime in. Hi, Grace.
Yeah. Hi.
I had a question following up
Mhm.
the clothing question you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
How do you build up your visual library of costume design? Like, how do you come up with costuming for characters on the spot?
A lot of it is kind of like behavioral studies in a sense as well. It's weird. Because if you think about in terms of like so much of costume designing can also pertain to what the person's background is, like the character's background is. How old are they? Where are they from? What is their living status like? Are they really well off? Are they really wealthy? Are they not so wealthy? And things like that. And that all of those different aspects of like character can indicate like what type of clothes that they can or cannot be wearing. And the other thing as well, if you're doing 3D characters, especially, and usually in 3D, that's where a lot of costume design comes in. Texture design is so important. Like, let me see if there's something in here that I can show you guys. This is something that I've had up in my tab for a while. So if you look at this, just textures everywhere. There's so many textures, and like even the folds of like this dress itself has so many textures in it, and like there's a pattern on this jacket and things like that. It's so nice. It's so nice. So like it's actually really helpful to even look at couture and like very avant-garde looking costumes as well, because they're not meant for like day-to-day clothing necessarily, to be honest. A lot of them, some are, but not all of them, but they play with texture so much. The reason why a lot of these costumes are like they feel very niche, they feel very designed, and they are basically designed. It's because the fashion designer is like thinking as like an artist, basically how we would do. How do we apply texture? Where do the folds apply? And once the folds are applied, how do we make it feel decorative, that it just feeling just like a fold? How does it fall on the body? And that is another thing too, like just keeping in mind of like how fabric is weighted can also affect the folds itself. And like thicker fabrics can also create like larger waves, basically, if that makes sense, versus like thinner fabric, it can create like smaller waves, smaller folds. So those are also things to keep in mind of. And then like for costume itself, I really, really, really enjoy looking at historical costumes a lot. My very rude witch lady. Let's see here. Just gonna use a very. So I'm just going to be blocking out the whole thing first. Let's see. Yeah, I like looking at a lot of historical costumes because they use different textures, they have different textiles, they have different fabrics, and their cuts, the tailoring for those costumes are so different back then than they as compared to like right now. Like compared to back then and now, right now we're in an age of like mass manufacturing, which means the cuts for things and costumes are a lot more simpler. We have much more larger pieces if you're thinking about like day-to-day people. Versus if you think about like how day-to-day people dressed back then, how complicated were those costumes back then? So usually like I really do like looking at resources like that are on Pinterest and things like that because people really like sharing their information, and it's like it's so great. And if you guys like cozy vintagey things like I do, I watch a lot of Bernadette Banner, Rachel Maxey. They just have they're YouTubers, and they put up like really nice cozy content of like just historical costumes or retro fashion and things like that. But those are actually fun to watch because it's interesting because then you get to see how fun it is, how the body shape itself ends up changing just based off of the different costumes as well. It's the visual library. I can't say that I can remember everything that I look at because I don't. My brain is always thinking of like, why is my cat doing that? What is going on? And they just random stuff. What is going on in life right now? Are we ever going to be out of pandemic? Just things like that. So hence why Pinterest and the online resource is so nice to have. And now especially there's like a huge culture of people getting so into historical fashion now. There's a lot of YouTubers and a lot of resources out there of people sharing their knowledge of like what they understand about historical costuming. And learning about historical costuming as well, it doesn't mean that you just have to stick to just those historical costumes. We're designers, we are storytellers, which means like things that we learn, we can still learn how to adapt and apply it into the work that we are doing, whether if it's fantastical or like modern or period. Because think about it. Hold on. Basically, yeah, okay. So even like with the clothing and like a lot of the couture stuff that we look at these days, a lot of those like cuts and trends that they try to apply to those outfits are a lot of them are sourced from like old historical costumes as well. So just look at whatever that appeals to you as like, oh, that's really cool. And sometimes when you're looking at these costumes, you can also think about like, what type of person would wear this? Like for this thing that we looked at, like what type of person would wear this and why? How old would they be? And actually, what kind of different age ranges of people can actually wear something like this? What if I swap out some of the colors? What would that look like? just thinking like that, which is triggering your problem solving brain basically. It can keep like a memory bank just that way in itself. So that later on, what happened here? Okay. When you get to a point of when you have to design for characters, whether if it's on the job or even if you're doing material studies, you have that database, whether if you have something just resourced from Pinterest or just something that you have in your head, you have saved on your desktop. And because you had like those like different ways of thinking when you were looking at those pieces, you're not required to do this every single time, but it's just fun to do when you're in that moment, basically. You have something that you can possibly do. Or like when later on when they ask for like, oh, we want like a character that is a little bit more age, they're a little bit more in their comfort, like maybe they're a little bit more, I don't know, like maybe a little bit eccentric, but they keep to themselves. Maybe something like this costume would be cool. And it's like something that you had thought you saw earlier, like, oh, maybe something like that would be pretty cool to put in. Just have fun looking around. I actually like in my spare time before I go to bed, and then my phone ends up dying because I forgot to plug it in. I'm just looking, I'm just looking at Pinterest and scrolling through. I'm like, oh, that's a cool design, and I just save it into one of my boards. And when I'm bored, I just go through my boards. I'm like, oh, that's a cool thing, and I end up wanting to draw something out of it. Or for work, I end up pulling that for reference as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that was a very insightful answer. Thank you.
All right, no problem.
So kind of related to that, you mentioned liking historical clothing and all. So it made me want to ask like what your thoughts or feelings were regarding like exploring your own personal culture in your art and other such mediums. Like do you like find it as usable as a way of like exploring your identity or something of that nature?
Oh, definitely. I haven't done it for costumes recently, but then I have done it for architecture, actually. A lot of the roofing and tiles that are consistent in a lot of Korean palaces, because I'm Korean American. I did apply a lot of the shape languages to a lot of the work that I have done for some productions. And then also like at the same time, I do, because of that knowledge that I do have to like occasionally call out certain productions as to like, that is specifically a Korean thing. This is what it would look like if it was of this culture that you are actually looking for, because there are two very different nuances to it. So it's worked hand in hand to both apply, to enlighten others, I suppose, as to your culture as well, but also just to like make sure to help, making sure that like people know what they are looking at, to educate the people, to educate not the people but people. Yeah, just to like educate people on like this is the differences between these cultures, because like as a lot of you like have been experiencing probably with the rise of so much hate crime going around the world, and especially, and like for me as like an Asian person, seeing the rise against like Asian hate, there's a lot of people I know nowadays that are trying to connect more with their own culture, because like even through that, like there's a lot of like and this can happen with any culture in general, like there's a lot of generational grief and guilt that occurs when incidents like this happen. So we do find a lot of comfort in trying to learn more about culture outside of what is here. And it's important. And then you end up learning a lot. Oh no, why? That's my mom calling. No, mom, not right now. But yeah, you find a lot of comfort through that. And for me, I've actually had a lot of fun, because there's a lot of things I would never have learned if I hadn't taken the time just out of pure curiosity, just looked up certain things. And because like same thing, every culture's experiences and every person's experiences are so vastly different, their method of problem solving is also different. So when you find certain people's clothing and their costumes, you see that one person might have designed certain belts, certain like waistlines, certain headdresses, like headbands, wristbands, sleeves. They're also different from culture to culture. You get to see like how all of those different shape languages end up applying based off of that. And as a result, when you're costume designing, you're like, oh, I have seen this thing be applied before. And then, of course, like still being conscious of like where it is being applied, you can put that in and be like, okay, so, and the interesting thing about that as well, sometimes it actually gives the character more depth. There has been some shows where once they apply like certain references of like certain historical costumes or cultural costumes, they ended up just dating that person to be like, oh, you know, it's, which like it can be annoying sometimes as well, but there are some cases when we would apply certain designs because we thought it would be cool. They're like, okay, well, we can apply that element that you are looking at, and we can just allow this character to be of that culture if we need to. That has happened a lot for both main characters and side characters, mostly side characters and stuff. But since main characters are very difficult to change because they have been cemented down the process so much. But yeah, and through that, like honestly, with diversity being in productions, that's as we keep going, we keep introducing more and more culture in those ways through basically entertainment and media that we are doing. And I think that's important. And that's why it's so important to have different types of people in production as well, because it brings different insights, it brings different thought processes. Because we cannot have just American thought processes, I suppose, and that's going to be all over animation, which I'm a little tired of, to be honest. Which American as in like the very catered, very, I don't know, cookie cutter story that we see all the time. It's not as personal anymore, these stories, which is why like I'm actually kind of excited for Dumishi's project, because I think it was the first time where I felt like the story felt different. It's not a person just having an identity crisis over and over again, which every single story I have seen so far has been some sort of identity crisis. And I'm like, I'm okay. I've seen that enough, I think. So having different cultures and different backgrounds come in and starting to like create their own stories has been so nice, because we see different types of stories as a result of it. Because to be honest, a lot of the stuff that has been coming out has been kind of getting bland these days. Could just be me, but that's my personal. That has been my thought on that for a while. Hopefully that answered your question. Every answer I have is so long-winded. I apologize.
Oh, that was great. I love hearing like people's thought processes behind things. So it's really nice.
Appreciate that. Oh, my coffee's bitter. Oh. I wonder if I could call Taro over sometime. It's probably somewhere. I shake the treat bag and maybe they'll run over somehow. I can hear it. He might be sleeping actually. Originally, the plan was that I was going to later on have this lady not for this talk because I don't have time for that. But basically, this lady that I drew, and then the lady that I was supposed to draw for you guys during this chat, I was gonna have them do like a whole witch wizard duel later on, and just do like a whole series of illustrations with them. We'll see if that happens. Yeah, all the high chirpy voices were all from Haru. Taro has a very low voice when he meows. I know, it's very cute. Oops. There. Any exposed skin anywhere else? No, that's it. Okay, bottom up. Does anyone else have any questions? Or want me to reiterate on anything from earlier in this chat?
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, oh, I have a question, but I think you missed it. I typed it in the chat, but I can read it again. Like,
Oh,
can
yes,
you
please.
tell us, can you tell us your story when you work in the industry for the first time, and then like, what you wish to do differently if you can go back at that time?
Oh, okay. I actually have an interesting story about my first job, of how I got my first job. Well, first was how I got that gig. Actually, I started looking for work a year ahead before I graduated. I was first before that, like I was going to like places like CTN, going to Nucleus, different gallery shows, and talking to people online, applying to different places as like a lot of us do. And then through that, it means like I ended up gaining a lot of contacts. So I started contacting a bunch of people at least a year ahead. And basically what I told them was that I am going to graduate around this time, by this time. So henceforth, I will be starting to look for work around this time, just to give you guys a heads up. Which means that they will know like, oh, because they actually do keep dates like that in mind for people. And then, yeah, and they'll contact you if they have anything come up around that time and things like that. But for my first job, which was actually as story revisionist, not a design. It was in story revision, which was the last thing I had expected I would end up getting into. But it was good because I ended up learning a lot about story and how it is integrated into production, because Art Center at the time didn't really have many storyboarding classes, and that is where the funny story actually comes in. But basically, so I also made sure that I communicated with my professors that who are still in the industry, for example, or I just talked with my professors. Like I just kept on chatting with them. I've like built up a good relationship with them. And then they would tell me that like, oh, this person from this place is actually looking for people. Are you interested? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Because why not? And then from there, they put me into contact with them. I just let them know it's the same thing, like I'm graduating around this time. And then once the time came around, they contacted me back and they're like, okay, are you officially graduated? Or would you be open to doing tests right now? And I said yes. They gave me first, because they know I want to go into design, they gave me a prop design test. Later, before they gave me their prop design test, they gave me a storyboarding test. And then they said, I know you're not in storyboarding, but would you still be interested? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And then like I had a mild panic attack. Being like, I don't know how to do story. I don't know how to do story. How the heck do I do story? I don't know how to do story. So I contacted all my friends that were in storyboarding to be like, how do you do story? Because I don't know how to do any of this. And then they all gave me like their notes. I'm so thankful for them. They gave me their notes. And then so one of them gave me like a whole notebook of like things that they had done, and I just borrowed those and I worked on that test with all those things in mind. And then I finished the test. I sent it back. There were like 10,000 cuts in it, I'm pretty sure. Very novice decision. But and then the interesting happened where they actually called me in. I finished the prop design test. They called me in and said, would you be interested in coming in for an interview? I went, and they asked me a bunch of questions, which I'm like, okay. And then they asked me the question of like, do you have any storyboarding experience? And my answer was, we have a storyboarding class at Art Center. I never said if I took it. I never said if I've done it. I just said that it existed. So I don't know if I lied as a result of it. And then they're like, oh, okay, all right, that's good to know. And in my head, I'm like, I don't know what I just did. Is that okay? Like, I just answered the question. Like, but then like usually like what I've noticed for like those types of interviews, it's mainly just to be like, is this person cool? Is this person not going to burn down the building if we bring her in, basically? So yeah, it went well. And then they called me in afterwards, and then they said that like, oh, if you're interested, would you like to come in full time? Like, yes, please give me job. Give me job. I need to pay rent and things like that. But no, it went well. I actually really enjoyed my first job because it was a story revision position. I had a good relationship with my director. I learned a lot, and I think it was because it was something new, because it was storyboard. I'm not familiar with storyboarding versus like how I am with design. It was fun because I was learning every day how to apply it as much as possible. And like luckily with like all the help that I had gotten from my friends who are already in storyboarding, I had like most of the basics down. So all I needed to do was just to get the nuances and like learning how to pace myself to make sure that I got everything I needed to basically just keep the production rolling, I suppose. The first production I worked on, I guess I should clarify, it was the Big Hero 6 TV series. I was a story revisionist on that. What's going on? I don't know. It was fun, and I'm extremely grateful for have gotten into that production because very luckily that entire team was very cool with each other. We were very comfortable with each other and things like that. I should just color code these. What am I doing? All the colors are gonna be extremely gaudy and ridiculous, but it's just so I know where all my layers are. I actually wouldn't change much of it. I do often wonder if I hadn't gone to the Shira production, if I had stayed on, what would have happened, because they were planning on bumping me up to a storyboard artist instead of a revisionist. Part of me is actually, no, now that I think about it, I'm kind of glad that didn't happen because I still have no idea about storyboard. I was just a revisionist and have been working for 4 months. How dare they put that pressure on me? How dare? But no, I had a great time over there. I actually wouldn't change much of it. maybe I wouldn't have minded just to hang around a little bit more, just to be with the people there, but that's something I can't change. So in the end, I learned a lot with every production that I have gone on to, both mental health wise and work wise and things like that, because man, you get rough productions that really eat away at you. Which usually consists of like the people that you meet in production. Sorry, I'm just going on to a tangent, basically. But yeah, I think this is one thing I would like to mention to you guys. And this isn't any scenario, not just the animation industry, just in any environment that you are. And when people give you their insights or their opinions, or they try to enforce their opinions on you, if you're not comfortable with it, then you don't have to take it in. If you're not comfortable with certain, if you're not comfortable with like certain criticisms and critiques and things like that, you don't have to take it. You go by how comfortable you are in that moment. Because sometimes those things can start making your thought process very confused. Basically, your interpretation of a lot of things can get very confusing because, you know, at most, like, we're all trying to function as best as possible based off of our knowledge of ourselves, basically. But if someone is trying to enforce something else upon you, that there's a difference between like being uncomfortable and versus like when you're uncomfortable, but like there's still some truth to it, but it's like in a productive way. If it's just criticism, then it's just like, it's not worth it. It's also like trying to keep in mind of like, where the heck did that criticism come from? Keeping those things in mind, it can help keep yourself protected when certain things occur, basically, because you're gonna meet a lot of people in this industry. And the animation industry is actually one of the nicer places, from what I've heard, like a lot of people coming from like live action and stuff. And it's true, there are a lot of very nice people in animation. Still doesn't change the fact that people are still people. It doesn't mean that you have to like keep a distance from everybody, but just don't pressure yourself to have to intake all the information that is coming in around you, because that is what I had done, and that it hurt for a long time because I was just very genuinely confused for such a long time. There were instances where someone had like was actually questioning like, why am I doing personal work? This is when actually my personal work productivity had dropped immediately. Basically what they had told me was that, what are you trying to prove by doing personal work? You're already working in the industry. What are you trying to do more of? And then this person was my superior, and because I was still so green in that production, I actually took it to heart. I'm like, oh, I must be doing something to prove myself, when it wasn't the case. I was just doing it because I enjoyed it. And like part of me didn't know that I was doing it just to enjoy it, but it was like, why would someone like that say that? And I had not expected someone to say that because I'm like, they're my boss, they're my superior. There's no reason for them to say something like that. I guess they mean something out of it. No, they didn't. It was just whatever discomfort and ego that they had, I suppose. But it's important to know how to protect yourself that way. And the things about stuff like this is that it actually takes you off guard, or catches you when you're off guard, basically, when you're just comfortably working and you're just trying to do your job, because we can't be on guard and prepared to filter everything out. So in those cases, it's important to like, if something felt a little bit off, you can ask them again if they can clarify. And sometimes when you do that, they end up catching themselves to be like, oh shit, like I shouldn't have said that. Now I'm confused. Like, oh wait, they caught me in that. Or you could talk to your friend and be like, does this sound right? And usually most of the time, like all my circle of friends are like, no, that's not right. That doesn't sound, why would they say something like that? It was really weird. It was such a strange place to be in. These are pants, I think. But yeah, it was bizarre, I gotta say. It was real bizarre. But yeah, it's stuff like that. Because to be honest, like when we're at school, we're not taught how the industry works. We're taught how to make pretty pictures. And a lot of the times, the best way for us to experience stuff like this is by working in teams, doing good projects, or not good projects, group projects, sorry, excuse me. So, which is why, like, actually a huge benefit that I had with a lot of my portfolio work was that I did a lot of group projects with my friends. We ended up actually setting off like a trend of doing group projects and large projects at the school. Because through that you get to like show off like the scale of what you can do and things like that, and you end up doing a lot more work because you're not the only one that is trying to figure out how to build this whole story. Someone else is there along with you to help with the thought process. So it's supposed to be a shoe, I forgot. But yeah, don't be required to take in everything that everyone has to say, despite them being a superior or not. And at the same time, you don't have to form an opinion about it either. Sometimes actually just nodding, but not really meaning anything by it is a very comfortable thing to do, because sometimes even just forming such like a strong opinion on certain things can be so exhausting in itself. Yeah, I've been learning, especially over the past couple of years, to just let it be. Like, I have enough fish to fry. We all have enough fish to fry. We have enough things to think about and worry about right now. We have other priorities. It's not really worth spending that on someone that is talking weird stuff, basically. So yeah, finding good people around you. It can be outside of work as well, where you're comfortable with talking with them and just gaining their insights, where you value their insights. It's really important. It can be from your friends, it can be from your family, it can be from your peers. So it's good. Like, those people are really important to have with you. It's like just bunny legs right here. That is honestly, in my opinion, how you survive this industry, or just any workplace. It's not just animation, honestly. Yeah, because once it's like what I mentioned in the beginning, like once you enforce other people's ideas into your life, you end up losing a lot, because again, you end up being graded by someone else's terms. Unless if it's like a class setting, and then like they're supposed to be giving you critique, and then they're supposed to like give you like advice on like how to improve something, like, yeah, that's fine. But when it's kind of like left wing, out of nowhere, just a little bit strange, like, then it's yeah, then it's like then go off of your judgment on whether if it's something that actually can benefit you or not. But otherwise, nah.
Thank you so much. It's really, really helpful. As like, I'm a really introvert person, so I will remember that forever. You know, like when you're introvert, like, do I do wrong, something like that? Like, shall I follow this person? Like what they talk, like, am I like the wrong one here? Am I the
Oh,
only
man.
one? Like I'll keep questioning that stuff. So I will definitely remember what you're saying today, like forever.
Oh
Thank you
yeah,
so much.
I'm glad. I am also introverted. I don't know, a lot of people don't say that. Once I'm done with this whole call, I'm gonna take a battery recharge break because from talking so much. I can't. I'm not a very social person. I recharge by staying on my own. But yeah, it's like, and I think it's just for anyone in general. Like it's important to know what your own terms are, what your boundaries are, and things like that, because that's the best way that you can take care of yourself, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, if I can ask a follow-up question about my
Yeah.
earlier question,
Yeah.
then if you start from the story revisionist, like how you then like shift to character designs?
Oh, I actually went from, okay, so the character design thing came by chance. There was someone I knew personally from working in different places, because my first official character design position came in about 2 years ago when I was working on the Stillwater production, which is the animal designs that you had seen. That was my first character design gig as a character lead. I think for them, just because like I have Detective Taro and Haru that I would keep doodling, and I have Monkey King and things like that. So they just ended up calling me up and they're like, oh, would you be interested? Actually, that gig itself was not meant to be character. They originally wanted to call me in as an art director, and then without letting me know, it was a little odd. But then I ended up becoming a character designer in the end, the lead character designer. So it turned out in the end, I got a lot out of it. It was rough having to jump in immediately as like a character lead position for someone that has never really done character before. But as I mentioned, there's a lot of cases where in this industry where you just kind of have to wing it. You have to learn on the job a lot. And in those cases, I highly recommend for you to ask around people that have those positions, that have done those positions, and ask advice from them. So I was asking around people, and like, this is like from like, in terms of like research, make sure you sample size, meaning that don't just ask one person, ask multiple people, because everyone has had so many different experiences, and which means they have different environments as to how they work. So ask multiple different people on what their advice would be. And sometimes they will give you advice on like the actual work itself. And some of them will give you advice pretty much on pretty much, hold on, select this, okay. They will give you advice on how to work as a person in leadership, basically. That is not what I wanted. Oh, that's what happened, okay. So through that, yeah, the character design thing came by chance. It's also like I do get a lot of people asking me like, oh, do you do character design, because my Instagram is filled with nothing but character. It's because that's just what I enjoy doing on my on the side. So I guess through that, people ended up figuring like, oh, this person can do character, we should call her for character, and that is kind of what happened at the end. It's a miracle that a show was even made with my expertise, in my opinion. But yeah, I learned a lot, and it was fun in the end. But oh boy, was it rough. I hope that answered your question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah, it is like it's really interesting.
Yeah,
you're
you never
actually-
know what happens.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really quite have a character design portfolio. And my portfolio's really freaking out of date. Like, but yeah, it's just kind of happened that way. And ever since then, I keep on getting occasional freelances for character design for animal stuff. And I'm like, well, it's easy, it's nice. Well, not easy. It's still hard, especially depending on who your boss is at the time, whoever it is that is giving the final say. But if it's a freelance and this character, at least for me, like it's nice. I don't have to think too hard about it in the end. All right, let's do these insane belts. Moments like this when I realize like I should have been a little bit more economical with this.
Can do it. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Okay. Would you say that it's common to get tested before getting hired for a feature viz dev position? I hear about getting tested for TV shows, background design and painting, but I haven't heard much about feature. Yeah, you actually don't get tests for feature, not that I have heard of. It's a little bit odd. I think I might have heard of one, or maybe it was like some ghost of one that may or may not have happened. I don't know. But feature doesn't really test. At most, what I think they do instead is that when they're in the development phase, like really early stages before any design has been solidified, they end up freelancing people to help develop ideas and designs and looks and stuff. And usually through there, it's not really a test. It's usually through that, if they find something that they would like to be what is the final development of the look, or is the person that they would like to go with, sometimes they end up hiring that person as a result. But no, it's not quite the same. And nowadays, there are some productions in TV where they call it freelance. So they can pay the person for their labor, basically, because tests are a lot. It's a lot of work to do, especially if you're already working, for example, and things like that. It's so much to do. But so that's kind of how they're trying to take it as. But yeah, no, I don't think it's not really that common. Oops. Not that common for them to do tests for features. It's so far has been like a series and TV production thing for sure. And for the tests, it was pretty simple. Well, in terms of the tests that I have gotten, there are some that have been absolutely bonkers crazy, and there are some that actually has been pretty reasonable and simple. Usually it gets crazy when they give you too much to do in a very short limited amount of time, which might not even suit the production time that they actually have. For some reason, they try to give like very ridiculous amounts of work in their tests, which is dumb. But oh my god, so many belts I regret. All right, 2 belts. But basically, so the first test that I had done, they gave me they will always give you the script, what is going on with the scene that they would like you to do a design for, basically. And then from then on, they would ask you based off of that script. Sometimes if they have storyboards, they will give you a storyboard panel. Usually they do, especially if you're in a 2D production. They will ask you to design something. that they would like you to design. It can be cups, it can be spoons, or any like type of prop. In my case, for the prop design test for Big Hero 6, they gave me that test, and then I just did a bunch of different designs off of it. And then the second part of that test was for me to design the espresso machine. In the show, and for the espresso machine, in the script it mentioned that there was a broken version, an in-between version, and then they ended up buying a new one. So I ended up designing the first part of the test where there were like a bunch of cups and spoons and things like that. And then the other part of the test, which was the espresso machine, I designed all 3 different stages of what it would look like when it started originally, which was a very old machine, and then what it would look like when it was broken down, and then what it would look like when they bought a brand new one. So yeah, those were the tests. I think, oh yeah, there was one more. They also wanted me to design one of the guns for one of the villains as well. So they gave me a lot, but luckily for me back then, it was my first job, which means I was still unemployed. I had enough time to work on it. So they gave me about a week to work on that prop test. So I sent it in, I gave them a bunch of different designs and alternatives. And because I gave them different alternatives and I also handed them all the rough sketches that I had done, they saw my thought process, they saw all the different options that I have had, and they saw the turnarounds that I had done. So yeah, they just took it, and if I didn't get snatched up by the storyboard team originally, they would have brought me in for a prop actually. So yeah, it's actually kind of funny to see that sometimes. I forget that sometimes internally, like they can start fighting for different people. But yeah, that's what happened in that test. And there are some tests where they would ask me while I'm full-time, and I tell them that I am full-time already on another job, that I don't have much time, probably just a weekend to work on things. And they would ask me to do 3 very dense and complicated layouts to do in a week, which means I only have about my evenings, which I still need to sleep because I need to know how to drive in the morning, and the weekend. But the difficult part of that is that I need to figure out how to break down that style, mimic that style, and also create layouts out of it. So there are certain cases where like those tests can be a little bit daunting. And sometimes it's like, if it doesn't work out, usually in my head, I just tell myself like, oh, well, might be a good thing because that test is pretty insane. Yeah, it's what I think sometimes when I get these tests. Please don't fight me. That's fine. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question about the tests. How do you go about picking a color palette for your drawings and designs? Same thing. It's just looking at references, and I find a color palette that might be pretty cool. Yeah, through like photographs and stuff, like other illustrations, other people's lighting and things like that. And I usually try to apply the same proportion of colors. Let me see if there's anything that I can show. Yeah, no problem. Let me see. There's this one photographer I have been looking at quite a lot, but I do gotta say, sometimes looking at more analog photographs, because they tend to bring out a lot more color than a lot of digital photographs do sometimes. So if I show you, actually, let me show you this person. It's been obsessed with this photographer for a while. So I've been looking at a lot of photography these days because I get to see a lot of like unique aspects and a lot of like unexpectancies in designs and color and things like that. So looking at stuff like this, a lot of times the way that I would end up breaking down these colors is seeing like what is the majority, what is actually looking at basically like seeing like what the proportions of these colors are. And let me see if there's a singular one because she has so many. So for example, in this one, it's a lot of fighting between like cool colors and warm colors. So if you see in the majority side of it, it's a lot of that warm gray that you see, and that takes over most of the image. And then like right in between there, you see those little hints of blue, which is like on her dress and maybe like on top of the rocks here as the light coming in, it must be like a skylight or something. But then you see the reason why this blue stands out a lot more, especially is because you have this like medium portion of red right on the bottom where she is lying down, and that blue ends up standing out a lot more, and therefore you can see her a lot more clearly. So breaking down color and like just figuring out how to use color in their advantage like this way as well is really useful. And then through there, you figure like how you can switch out those proportions. And like once you apply color sometimes, like let me see. Yeah, even like your stuff right here, we have the red on top and the gold that she is wearing. There's this color and the little basket right here, and then her skin tone and things like that. And like, I guess the background can also be consisting of another color as well. I always make sure that these are always grouped in separate groups on Photoshop, because I do want to see after I'm done applying everything, how it looks if I shift around the colors, even though I did reference something and I did borrow the colors from something else. Even if I did that, I still want to see what it looks like if I shifted the colors into another range, basically. And once I do that, I actually get a lot of surprises as a result of it. And then like, it actually does make me feel a little better when I do that, because then I'm like, oh, it strays further away from the reference that I had done, and actually still looks pretty cool. If it didn't, then I still like, and it still looks better with like the original colors, and that's fine too. I still figured it out in the end. And also another thing that helps is that take advantage of your gradients as well. Don't just do singular block colors. Like if you're having difficulty with like trying to make things mold together, sometimes it actually helps to have like a subtle, like warm or tonal shift that is gradiating out from like certain areas of your colors as well. And that'll help marry everything together and make everything look less stark from each other to cut out, basically. But yeah, definitely I highly recommend looking up photographers and things like that. Let me see. Where's the top? Where's the top? There you go. So this is her handle if you guys want to check out her stuff, but I love her work. It's so good. And then, yeah, that's pretty much how I do. Yeah, video will be up, and then you guys can like run through again to look at the references and things like that. Okay, someone asked for interview tips. It's number one, research who you're being interviewed by. Is the director going to be there? Is the producer going to be there? Is your art director going to be there? If you're in story, is your story director going to be there? If you're in feature and you're in story, is your head of story going to be there? Keeping in mind of who is going to be in that production or in that meeting with you. What's going on? It's actually good because then you start researching who they are, what productions that they have worked on, where they have worked, and all those things. And then from there, like then you have questions that you can ask them as a result of it. And then also like learning about the production beforehand, whoever that you are communicating with that is setting up your interview, you can ask them like, who am I meeting during this meeting? And also you can ask them questions. Always ask also like, how long is this production going to go into? And if you're going into for like a series production, how many episodes are there? How much time are we going to have per episode? So having that knowledge as well, you can ask further questions with them and be like, oh, I heard that like for this episode is going to take like, maybe we're going to have like 4 weeks to go from scratch to completion for our boards. And then there's going to be some revision time, but what are you expecting during that time exactly? And then you can actually end up asking very specific questions, and at the same time it makes you appear as if you are very production driven, I suppose. You're very insightful in terms of like the work that you are doing. Excuse this clown of an illustration that is going on right now. I'm still blocking. I'm still trying to talk at the same time. I'll have both of these up. Don't worry, guys. I'm so sorry about this. I feel so bad. I could not like properly do a demo and talk with you guys. It should have just been, well, it's okay. I learned. But what was we saying? But yeah, having that type of like doing your research ahead of time for stuff like that and making sure that you ask those questions before the meeting happens is pretty important. Because then you don't go in blind. And the other thing as well, like because of that, you might feel a little bit more comfortable when you're talking. And the other thing as well, like I found that always, sometimes I might need to read the room, but for me, what has worked for me the best and like for everyone in general as well is just being comfortable. Just like you're chatting with a coworker or like a peer or something like that in the meeting, and then everyone just feels a lot more relaxed and you end up getting a lot more about like what the people are like as a result as well. Because also it's also important to keep in mind that you doing these interviews are not just you being interviewed, you are also interviewing them in a sense, in the way that you are testing the waters of what this production might be like, what these people might be like. That answers your question. I'm glad these answers are useful. Let me see, what time is it? Oh, it's 5. Oh no. Well, let me answer the last bit of questions. What am I doing outside lately? Outside of doing art, I am so obsessed with stationery. Right now, I have ridiculous amounts of stationery and like antique looking stationery. So I've been getting into that. And as usual, as a lot of people are doing, I'm into plants right now, taking care of my cat. Reading a lot of comics, reading a lot of webtoons and things like that. Just trying to relax. That's it. So hard to relax sometimes. Yeah. Oh my god, if you guys see the amount of webtoon apps I have on my phone, you would laugh. There's so many on there right now. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of like trying to reorganize my room and clean things up, making it more efficient, I suppose. Hold on, let me just stop the share and I'll just do that. But yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, just bumming around.
One quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I wanted to ask if there would be like any way to keep in touch with you after that, if that's like something that you do, or
Oh, okay. Number one, I'm very bad with messages. I am notoriously bad with keeping up with my emails and messages, pretty much. But if you'd like, I don't mind people popping in like a message on my Instagram and like, or like, I'm not really good with emails necessarily, except unless if it's for like work. But if you guys want to touch base with me, like honestly, like Instagram is like the most easiest casual way to like drop in a question if you guys are okay with that. And eventually I'll answer. It might take a month. Who knows? But eventually I'll answer.
Cool. Okay. It's just been really fun to hang out with you and hear your insights and such. So thank you very much.
I'm glad that this is useful for you guys, despite this demo not being really being a demo. But yeah, do you guys have any other questions before we wrap up today? Is there anything I might have missed in the chat, maybe? Oh yeah, Selena's busy. It's busy, honestly. Everyone that is working is just insanely busy. The ones that actually keep up with their emails and messages with everyone are gifted in the sense that I can't believe they have the energy and the time to be able to do that. Yeah, once I'm done with the screen recording for all of this, I will put it up online for you guys to check out. And then I'll also put downloads to the brushes that I use for those specific things into the video descriptions as well. So everything will just be in like one place basically, and you will know which brush is associated with what. Yeah, no problem. I'm like, Buddy, you can say bye. He's like, no, I'm so sleepy. I know this demo turned official, this unofficial podcast. Thanks guys for your guys' patience. All right, I am going to end it here. Yeah, just I'll let you guys know once I put these illustrations up and the videos up as well. The video for the Zoom call might come up tomorrow, maybe by Monday, maybe. It'll be up there in case, like, if you know any friends that wanted to come into this video call and they couldn't get in because of the size cap. Yeah. If they want, they can take a look at that if there's like anything that they wanted to ask, and I might have like answer some of the questions that they might have had and things like that. Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys. Thanks for taking the time to just hang out and chat and things like that. So yeah, if it's very early in the morning for you guys, please go to bed. Good night. If it's dinner time for you guys or lunchtime or any meal time, just go and enjoy your meals and just chill out, or enjoy the rest of Lightbox as well. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.